Chapter 3068. Mentioning this, Hell Palace's people's expressions all had slight changes. Following that, they looked at each other, their faces filled with a dilemma. After hesitating for some time, Hell Palace's people then opened their mouths. Ghostfire candle. Indeed, can increase our ability, but Ghostfire candle is made from a living person's resentment and vitality. The resentment is extremely strong, and if we're not careful, there's a possibility of being swallowed by Ghostfire candle, becoming its food. When Hell Palace's people reached this point, their voices were slightly trembling. It could be seen that towards the unstable factor of Ghostfire candle, they were fearful from the bottom of their hearts. That Lord Hell from before, had he been swallowed by Ghostfire candle? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she asked her next guess. The people from the Underworld Palace immediately turned their gazes toward the direction of the sedan. Yub, how did you know? Indeed, that Lord Hell who had been saved by Yu Han and whose ability had increased greatly, had already been swallowed by Ghostfire candle. They had personally witnessed Ghostfire candle swallowing the former Lord Hell bit by bit in the dark green candle flame. How I know isn't important. What's important is, when did you discover that Ghostfire candle would swallow you? Yi Qing Luo continued to ask. Hell Palace's people's expressions congealed as they hesitated for a moment. Silence started to spread in Hell Palace. Yi Qing Luo didn't rush them, only calmly and indifferently, waiting for Hell Palace's people's reply. In the entire Hell Palace, there was only Bai Mei's painful moans from the candle flame tearing her face and the hissing sound of the candle flame burning. There were no other sounds. Under this oppressive atmosphere, one of Hell Palace's people suddenly threw down the weapon in his hand as he cried out sharply, "We've obviously been schemed against by the Palace of Darkness. That damned Palace of Darkness, they even dare to scheme against us." That man raised his head as his gaze was filled with madness. The former Lord Hell, who was swallowed by Ghostfire candle 3 days ago. 3 days ago he was swallowed by Ghostfire candle. When he said the last sentence, that man seemed to be gritting his teeth as every single word came out from the slits of his teeth. His hands clenched tightly into fists. That person called Yu Han said she came from Palace of Darkness. Furthermore, he had come on behalf of the Palace Master of Gloomy Palace to help the Underworld Palace. In exchange, the Underworld Palace must unconditionally agree to do one thing for the Palace of Darkness. For Hell Palace, they had done all kinds of atrocious things. He had personally witnessed the power of the will-o-wisp candle on the former Lord of Hell. Naturally, they agreed without hesitation. Yu Han, who was sent by the Palace of Gloom, had saved Lord Hell of the Underworld Palace at that time. She had also given Underworld Palace the method to raise their strength. To the Underworld Palace, this was indeed a great favor. A few days ago, Yu Han came to us and asked us to use the space explosion sorcery to devour a space in the mortal world. We agreed to it as a way to repay the favor to the Palace of Darkness. We didn't know that the people from the Palace of Darkness wanted to deal with you, madam. I don't know that the Lord Dizun is in the space that the Dark Abyss Palace wants us to swallow. The people from the Palace of Darkness didn't tell us anything. They only said that someone from the Miao tribe offended the second Palace Master of the Palace of Darkness and wanted to teach the Miao tribe a lesson. Everyone from the Underworld Palace looked at Xiaba and Lung Yen, who were lying on the ground. Chapter 3069. That bunch of grandsons from the Palace of Darkness. Not only did they want to get someone else to do their dirty work, they even lied to us. That person from Hell Palace was filled with hatred as he spoke. Ghostfire candle. That was a scheme of the Palace of Darkness. We created thousands of Ghostfire candles, and after lighting them up around the surroundings of Hell Palace, the entire Hell Palace was enveloped by it. Once these candles were lit up, there was no way to extinguish them. Initially, these Yin Qi were able to increase our abilities, But later on, the yin qi became more and more intense, as though it had suppressed our powers. Hell Palace's people were filled with hatred and fear as they looked at that side, at the scene where the candles covered Bai Mei. What happened to the previous Lord of Hell? Yi Qing Luo asked again. Because this month's Lord of Hell's position was taken by Xia Ba while the previous Lord of Hell was in closed-door cultivation to snatch the position. The previous Lord of Hell was thinking of snatching back this position. So. Hearing the Hell Palace's people stuttering, Yi Qing Luo's brows rose, so that previous Lord of Hell increased the absorption of the yin qi from the ghost fire candle, causing the yin qi to corrode his body and later being swallowed by the ghost fire candle. Am I right? Hell Palace's people lowered their heads, tacitly agreeing with Yi Qing Luo's words. Yi Qing Luo rolled her eyes. No wonder Xia Ba and Lung Yan seemed much more relaxed after they were carried into Hell Palace. They were probably planning to absorb the ghost fire candle's energy to launch a huge counterattack. No wonder Old Lai and the rest of Hell Palace's people were able to swiftly recover their energy under the circumstances where they were seriously injured. And they were able to raise their battle power in a short period of time. All these were made use of the ghost fire candle's energy. In this way it made sense. Towards the cause and effect of the Hell Manor, Yi Qing Luo had more or less guessed it. She might as well not bother to continue asking. She shifted her gaze onto Bai Mei. In her heart, she faintly had a new guess. Over at the Palace of Darkness, they had always liked to play some tricks in the dark. They looked for Hell Palace. Absolutely not just to make use of Hell Palace's hands to kill DMO, Xian, and her. After all, if something really happened to DMO, Xian in the Miao tribe, on the Imperial Palace's side, or the powerhouse behind DMO Xian, if they wanted to seek revenge for DMO Xian, it was very easy to find out that it was the dark Nether Palace. Therefore, getting someone else to do the dirty work might just be a superficial reason. In fact, there was another reason. This reason, it was very likely that it had something to do with the human skin that Bai Mei had changed into. She looked at the face that had completely separated from Bai Mei's. In Yi Qing Luo's heart, there was a very ominous premonition. He had a feeling that this person's face was going to stir up trouble again, as expected. Just as this thought surfaced in Yi Qing Luo's mind, all of a sudden, Bai Mei let out a miserable shriek. Soon after, his body softly slid down the rock wall. Fresh blood permeated her entire body. It dyed her white chiffon dress red. When Bai Mei slid to the ground, she did not ask for help from her sister. Instead, he raised his hands, wanting to touch his face, but not daring to do so. My face. This is my face. You can't take my face away, she cried hoarsely, filled with despair. Chapter 3070. To Bai Mei, losing that face was even more terrible than death. She would rather die. She wasn't willing to lose her face. Bai Mei screamed in pain as her hands finally pressed on her face. Not sure if it was because of the flesh and blood on her hands or because of the pain, Bai Mei screamed as she seemed to have lost all her strength and fell to the ground. Everyone's attention was not on Bai Mei. Instead, they were staring at the human face which was shrouded in countless green candlelight. The human face was not stained with a drop of blood after it fell off Bai Mei's face. This is... Bai Su stared at the human face as she frowned. What a heavy yin qi! Oh, as expected. DMO Xian's eyes were deep and bottomless. The words that came out of his mouth were extremely light, but in the ears it was filled with a dignified and cold temperament which made one's heart skip a beat. Bai Su looked sideways at him. What do you know? Don't keep me guessing. DMO Xian's peach blossom eyes looked up at that human face as his lips curled into an unfathomable smile. Bai Su was anxious as she urged, Why are you still acting mysterious? Can't you tell me what you know? The real motive of the Palace of Darkness is not to kill with a borrowed knife. Just at this moment, a young lady's clear and melodious voice was heard from the carriage. Baisu's beautiful eyes lit up, and she simply gave up on asking Dmo Xian that sneak attack. Her spiritual body leaned towards the direction of the carriage and said, "Little beauty, you and Dmo Xian are really a match made in heaven. Both of you are so smart. Tell me, what did you see?" Hearing Baisu's seductive tone and her weird Andy look, Yi Qingluo's eyes and lips twitched uncontrollably. She was speechless. Baisu's pitiful sister had lost her face and was about to die from excessive blood loss. Baisu could actually stand in front of her and joke with her as if nothing had happened. Was she so sure that Bai Mei would not die? But Baisu didn't care about Bai Mei's life or death. Yi Qingluo naturally wouldn't care. Bai Mei, who had lost her face and was about to become a cripple, could no longer stir up any waves. Moreover, after this incident, if Baisu really wanted to spare Bai Mei's life, she would definitely make arrangements for Bai Mei. Yi Qingluo's gaze fell onto Baisu as she calmly opened her mouth to continue her words. Secluded Palace's motive is to borrow the hands of the Underworld Palace, to manufacture the ghost flame candle, to provide this human face with energy. WH what? Dark Secluded Palace. Dark Secluded Palace wants to make use of us to manufacture ghost flame candles. When Hell Palace's people heard Yi Qingluo's words, they were all shocked. Even though they had committed all sorts of atrocities, such as murder and skinning. However, to them, doing such sinister things on their own was a form of entertainment. But if all of this was someone else's scheme, someone who was deliberately using them, those people from Underworld Palace simply couldn't accept this. Towards the reactions of those people from Hell Palace, Yi Qingluo wasn't interested to bother about them. She narrowed her eyes and stared at the human face carefully. This human face should be able to absorb enough energy soon. Who is the target of this human face? Her frivolous smile contained a hint of mockery. Dmo Xian's eyes darkened. Everyone only felt a gust of cold wind brushing past. That tall figure was already standing in the carriage, as his long arm drew back, pulling the young lady into his embrace. At the same time, Chapter 3071. The target is actually me? Baisu cursed in a very ungraceful manner. Her spiritual body shook and quickly avoided the human face. However, it was obvious that the human face had set its eyes on Baisu. With a swift turn, it caught up with her. The dense yin qi was sinister and strange. This yin qi is really scary. Baisu curled her lips and said, "How many people's resentment and yin qi did it absorb to gather such dense yin qi? If I'm contaminated by it, I'm afraid my spiritual body will be destroyed." Xian. Yi Qingluo saw Baisu being chased around by that human face. The green candlelight dragged out a trail of traces. She tugged Dmo Xian's sleeve. "I am very safe in the enchantment. You go and deal with that human face first." "She won't die." Dmo Xian didn't even bat an eyelid. "If I save her, you will be jealous." Yi Qingluo. She just felt that Baisu should have a good relationship with him. If something happened to Baisu in front of him, it would be his responsibility. Moreover, did she look like someone who would be jealous? Do I look like someone who's being unreasonable? Like, apparently, Baisu, who was escaping, also heard this sentence. She made a turn and rushed to the carriage. "Dmo Xian boy, can't you have some virtue of respecting the old and cherishing the young? You want an old man like me to block the knife for your little beauty. Don't you feel embarrassed?" "Yes." Dmo Xian was decisive. His voice was cold. Baisu gritted her teeth. Dmo Xian continued coldly, "Admit that you are an old woman." F***CK. Baisu was furious. "Go and protect your little beauty. I'm not doing this anymore." Just as she finished her words, Baisu's spirit body suddenly shook and disappeared in the air. The face that glowed with a dark green light missed its target. It swayed a few times in the air. That human face turned its face towards the direction of the carriage. Yi Qingluo's face was thick as she stared straight at her. The visual impact was quite terrifying. Yi Qingluo frowned. The human face's target is indeed me. Attacking Baisu was just a cover. She wanted to use Baisu to lure Mo Xian out. The human face took the opportunity to attack her. Obviously, this human face had its own thoughts. Or perhaps someone was secretly manipulating this human face. This thought made Yi Qingluo's expression congeal. She was just about to lift the veil of the carriage and sense the surroundings to see if there were any unfamiliar auras. Just as he moved, her waist was caught by the man's strong arm. Her back leaned against the man's broad chest. The elegant scent of sandalwood soothed her heart. "Stay, wait for me." Mo Xian lowered his head and whispered into her ear. He caressed her hair gently with his large and thick palms. After that, he leaped out of the carriage and headed towards the human mask. "Xian." Yi Qingluo frowned. The surroundings, she only managed to spit out 2 words. Yi Qingluo's voice paused. Her face was a little gloomy. She actually couldn't move. Yi Qingluo stared angrily at Mo Xian's back. She was in the enchantment boundary. No one could plot against her. She couldn't move. It must be Mo Xian's trick. Mo Xian. Yi Qingluo shouted angrily. "Why did you trap me?" Mo Xian's sleeves moved and purple light shone. The majestic and violent profound energy wrapped that human face. The dark green yin qi began to surge. Chapter 3072. 2 bursts of energy transformed into a huge light blade. As it kept on engulfing each other, the violent and terrifying strength chi roared and buzzed within the Hell Palace. Gravel flew everywhere as the candle flame flickered. This was a powerful pressure. Even those few people from the Hell Palace couldn't help but clutch their chests as they spat out blood. Not to mention those few crippled people who were lying on the ground without any chance to retaliate. When the 2 bursts of energy tangled to the brink of a volcanic eruption. On the rock wall, those strange, ghostly green candles swayed and fell off the rock wall. The ghostly fire candle's speed was extremely fast. In just a few breaths' time, the ghostly fire candle had already rolled to the side of Xiaba and Leng Yan. The ghostly green candle flame instantly enveloped both of their bodies. Hiss, hiss! The candle flame swayed violently, giving off an extremely pungent smell in the air. This time, the smell was extremely obvious. Yi Qingluo just took a sniff and she could smell the smell. A thick, rotten smell. But a moment later, that ball of ghostly green candle flame swayed once again. On the ground, there were no signs of those 2 lumps of flesh and blood. Only their clothes were left, which proved that they indeed existed. This scene made the Hell Palace's people's faces turn paler. It's here again. The ghostly fire candle is swallowing living people again. Swish, swish, swish. After the ghostly green candle flame swallowed Xiaba and Leng Yan, the candle flame started to sway vigorously, as though it had absorbed a huge amount of energy. It started to dance wildly in joy. Hiss! Another sound of the candle flame swaying was heard. She saw the energy which was entangled with Mo Xian with a whoosh, the ghostly green glow scurrying. The ghostly green glow instantly swallowed Mo Xian's purple electric glow. Xian! Yi Qingluo saw this, and her heart became even more anxious. She wanted to move, but her 4 limbs were still restrained by an invisible force, totally unable to move. Immediately, Yi Qingluo became anxious. Xian, the surroundings are filled with the ghostly fire candles, yin qi. That human face skin relies on the yin qi to constantly increase its energy. As long as the ghostly fire candle doesn't extinguish, the human face skin will have an endless supply of energy. This was also the reason why the Palace of Gloomy Darkness chose the Underworld Palace, because the madman here had killed too many people, and because the terrain was shady, the entire Hell Prefecture was quiet. The entire Hell Palace was filled with a gloomy aura. It was the most suitable place to make will-o'-the-wisp candles. It was also the most suitable place to cultivate Yin energy. The people of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness put the strange human face on Bai Mei's face. He used Bai Mei as a medium to transmit the human skin. All he had to do was send Bai Mei to the underworld palace. The human skin absorbed all the resentment and vitality of the ghost fire candle. That human face would become a weapon to kill without spilling blood. It could be said the entire Hell Prefecture was now a magnetic field of human faces. The human face skin could continuously increase its energy, and it did not need to worry about running out of energy. Yi Qing Luo's heart tightened. No matter how powerful Xian was, he was still a human. There would also come a time when the energy would run out. Bang! Just as Yi Qing Luo was looking on helplessly, that dark green glint started to expand, as it completely enveloped DMO Xian's purple light, only to hear an exploding sound of the air vibrating. The dark green light was like pieces of shattered green crystals, as it shot out in all directions. The purple light was glistening. That tall and straight figure stood silently on the original spot, with his hands behind his back. The man was dressed in a purple robe, as the hem of his robe fluttered along with the strong wind, as though purple clouds were rolling. Just a glance. Chapter 3073. DMO Xian's peach blossom eyes were filled with a biting, cold glint. His sleeves moved, and a thick, profound energy filled the air, rippling out circles after circles of profound waves. The dark green light which enveloped the human face skin seemed to have been squeezed by something, as it kept twisting and changing shape. That human face skin, it was only 5 steps away from the carriage. Through a layer of gauze, Yi Qing Luo could clearly see that under the dark green light, that human face skin was twisted and squeezed. That was a kind of déjà vu feeling of a face being squeezed into a ball. The eyes, nose, and mouth were all squeezed into a line. The surrounding candlelight swayed even more violently, as though it was going to burn the entire Hell Palace. The dark green light continued to sway. It added a bit of frightening treachery to this gloomy Hell Palace. The dark green light continued to scuttle towards the direction of the human face skin. But no matter how turbulent the light was, recklessly providing energy to the human face skin, the twisted and squeezed feeling of the human face skin had not lessened. On the contrary, it became more and more twisted, as though it was about to curl into a ball. Gradually, that face's features could not be seen. On the contrary, DMO Xian, his expression was cold, and his peach blossom eyes had no emotions at all. A powerful and majestic aura was constantly being released from his body, but the expression on his face was still the same as before. It was as light as the wind and clouds, as though the consumption of energy to him was of no importance. 2 bursts of energy collided continuously in the air, giving out bursts of air exploding sound. Just like what Yi Qing Luo had speculated, the human face skin had relied on the Hell Palace to become its magnetic field, and with the yin qi provided by the ghost fire candle, it constantly replenished its energy and increased its energy, time and time again, trying to suppress the pressure created by DMO Xian. But no matter how much the human face increased its energy, DMO Xian was able to suppress the human face skin, making it unable to resist at all. After a long period of suppression, the human face skin apparently became agitated. The dark green light was like a hurricane once again, sweeping up a series of violent tornadoes, twisting and twisting the purple light which was suppressing it. DMO Xian's eyes were deep, and one look it was bottomless, profound and unfathomable, making one feel an inexplicable chill. He did not move. He allowed the tornadoes and hurricanes to wrap around his power. His purple robe was fluttering in the dark green wind. His ink-black hair also flew on his shoulders. A few breaths later, The human face skin also realized that its own agitation, Di emotion, could not even stir up a single ripple. His face was a little stiff from anger. It was also the moment when the human face froze in anger. Di emotion's gaze suddenly froze. He, who had not moved for a long time, suddenly flipped his palm. Waves of air surged and surged. The powerful, profound energy was like a huge boiling wave. In an instant, it bound the human face. The human face suddenly let out a hissing sound. Then the human face that was twisted into a ball began to emit green smoke. The surrounding inlight also began to scatter wildly. When Yi Qing Luo saw this, her pupils constricted. She finally understood why Di Emotion had been using his own profound energy to suppress the human face instead of directly taking action to get rid of the human face. Di Emotion's suppression of human face. This caused the human face to become more and more anxious and uneasy. Once it was anxious, even if it was a human face without any vitality, it would also reveal a flaw. As long as there was a flaw in the human face's mental energy, Di Emotion took this opportunity to strike. Chapter 3074. If the human face skin really had its own consciousness, controlling the human face skin, there was a possibility that there would be a chance to start from the human face skin, to find out the purpose of the human face skin, and the identity of the person behind the scenes. The secluded palace had planned so many things step by step. Yi Qing Luo was really curious. What was the motive of the person behind the secluded palace? As a high-ranking person in the upper realm, to be able to hide himself under Jun Qinggu and Bai Su's investigation, his ability was definitely not to be underestimated. Why would he put in so much effort for a Nirvana realm? Moreover, it wasn't that the person behind the scenes didn't know Di Emotion's identity, but he still dared to go against Di Emotion. It could be seen that that person was extremely confident, totally not worried that Di Emotion would find out his identity. Hiss, hiss! The sound that the human face skin made was getting more and more obvious. More and more green smoke was emitting from the human face skin. The green chi in the surroundings gradually dissipated. The human face skin kept struggling. His twisted facial features were extremely hideous and terrifying. Di Emotion's peach blossom eyes squinted slightly. His chi waves were monstrous, surging like waves. Just as Di Emotion was preparing for the last strike to completely cut off the source of the human face skin's mental power, the human face skin, which was emitting green smoke, suddenly gave out an extremely ear-piercing hiss-hiss sound, not knowing where the energy came from. That piece of human face, which had curled up into a ball, directly broke through Di Emotion's purple light barrier, and like a lightning, it charged towards the carriage, just a distance of 5 steps away, with a speed as fast as lightning. Almost in a blink of an eye, the human face skin had already charged out of the enchantment. The human face skin, which broke through the obstruction, it had already opened up, revealing its facial features. Its hollow eyes, nose, and mouth reflected a deep green light, looking extremely frightening. Di Emotion's expression changed. His deep eyes turned cold. Lil Luo, be careful! His figure moved, speedily moving towards the carriage. The maids who were guarding around the carriage saw this and quickly wanted to block in front of the carriage. But before they could move, the dark green light that came from all directions wrapped around their limbs, causing the 4 of them to be unable to move for a moment. When they quickly dealt with the light that was surging towards them, that human face had already penetrated through the enchantment as it headed straight towards Yi Qing Luo's face. This series of events actually happened in the blink of an eye. Just as the human skin was about to cover his face, Yi Qing Luo's fingers moved and the glower flame fan swiftly opened up, blocking in front of her. Dark force burst forth. Yi Qing Luo's fingers flickered rapidly once again. The glower flame fan danced excitedly on her fingertips as she swiftly counterattacked. But at this moment, Pung! An earth-shattering noise resounded. The ground shook violently. Yi Qing Luo only felt that her wrist was held by an extremely strong force. Immediately after, her delicate body was pulled and thrown into a chest that was filled with coldness. The faintly familiar smell made Yi Qing Luo frown slightly, just as he was about to break free. However, a strong arm forcefully locked onto her waist. An ice-cold voice floated down from above. "Don't move!" When this voice entered Yi Qing Luo's ears, it made Yi Qing Luo quivered. As she completely woke up, her eyes suddenly widened as she raised her head to look over. What entered her eyes was a cold and aloof-side face, as though it was meticulously sculpted. Chapter 3075. When Yi Qing Luo met that pair of icy cold eyes, she shuddered. "Zhu Wu Xian, why are you here?" Wasn't the person in front of her Zhu Wu Xian? He was dressed in a red robe, like a blazing fire, looking ostentatious and reckless. But the aura around him was cold and arrogant, and his imposing manner was extremely sharp, making one not dare to get close to him. One of his arms was tightly wrapped around her waist, while the other hand was bare-handed, blocking the human face skin. Human face skin. Yi Qing Luo's struggle stopped as her eyes swiftly shifted onto the human face skin. Endless, dark greening light merged with the human face skin as it wrapped around Zhu Wu Xian's right palm. It was like a piece of human face skin, tightly sucking on Zhu Wu Xian's hand. Zhu Wu Xian had helped her to block the encroachment of the human face skin. But the scene which made Yi Qing Luo's heart cursed even more. Dmo Xian was standing on the other side of the human face skin, which was opposite her. Directly opposite, less than 2 steps away. He was releasing his profound energy, blocking the human face skin's attack. Yi Qing Luo. In front of the main wife's boyfriend, what should she do if she was hugged in another man's arms? Waiting online. It was urgent. In the current situation, she couldn't struggle. Zhu Wu Xian, this lad, couldn't he be more self-aware and let go of her? If he wanted to save her, then save her. Why was there a need to be so touchy? Most importantly, in the earlier situation, she actually didn't need Zhu Wu Xian to save her. She could handle it too. At this moment, she had to rack her brains again to coax her jealous boyfriend. Yi Qing Luo wanted to cry, but the matter had already happened, so she could only brace herself to face it. After all, Zhu Wu Xian had rushed out to save her at this moment. That was out of good intentions. Let go of your hand. Dmo Xian's icy cold gaze was fixed on Zhu Wu Xian's hand, which was wrapped around Yi Qing Luo's waist. Zhu Wu Xian shot a chilly glance at him, as his hand wrapped even tighter around her. Dmo Xian's face sunk as his profound energy was drawn from the human face skin, as his long arms swiftly stretched out towards Yi Qing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes narrowed slightly as he hugged Yi Qing Luo tightly while his body swept backwards, avoiding Dmo Xian's hand. Zhu Wu Xian. Dmo Xian's brows were tightly knitted as a cold glint flickered in his eyes, exuding a murderous intent. He speedily went up once again, trying to snatch Yi Qing Luo back. But Zhu Wu Xian obviously did it on purpose, hugging Yi Qing Luo tightly, refusing to let go. Yi Qing Luo was led by Zhu Wu Xian as she turned left and right. She could feel that Dmo Xian's rage was rising continuously. She furrowed her eyebrows and suddenly raised her hand, her fingers grabbing onto Zhu Wu Xian's shoulder. "Let me down." Just as she moved, she saw something from the corner of her eyes, and her expression changed drastically. "Zhu Wu Xian, be careful of people's pride." When Dmo Xian withdrew his profound energy, that human face skin also knew that it was pincered from the front and back and had no way to escape. Hence it might as well go all the way, as it directly pressed the human face skin onto Zhu Wu Xian's arm. The skin of the human face tightly wrapped around Zhu Wuxin's palm. Zhu Wu Xian frowned as his icy cold gaze swept past the human face skin. Hurry and let go of me. First remove the human face skin from your hand. Yi Qing Luo tried to pry his hand away. No matter. Zhu Wu Xian calmly spat out 2 words as he still hugged her waist without any intention to let go. That human face skin followed the dim green light as it slowly merged into Zhu Wu Xian's skin. Chapter 3076. Zhu Wu Xian's eyelids drooped as his black pupils were deep and cold, as he stared fixedly into her eyes. That grave and stern face magnified into Yi Qing Luo's pupils. His thin lips curled into a faint cold arc. Let me hug a little longer. Yi Qing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian's voice wasn't considered very gentle, but as compared to his icy cold, stiff tone, it was considered much gentler, especially with that faint smile on his face. Yi Qing Luo only felt a layer of goosebumps all over her body. Her lips twitched a few times. Zhu Wu Xian, are you King sick? Yi Qing Luo couldn't take it anymore as she tugged Zhu Wu Xian's arm, which was covered by the human face skin, and exerted force. Her petite body left Zhu Wu Xian's embrace. Her 5 fingers swiftly locked onto Zhu Wu Xian's wrist, making use of the silver silk shot out from the glower flame fan in an attempt to prevent the human face skin and Zhu Wu Xian from merging. But Yi Qing Luo's speed was ultimately a step too slow. Just at the instant when the silver silk shot out, the human face skin had completely merged into Zhu Wu Xian's arm along his palm. Yi Qing Luo tugged on his arm as she gritted her teeth and scolded Zhu Wu Xian. Has your brain been kicked by a donkey? Can't you feel the danger of this human face skin? You're just going to allow this human face skin to enter your body and control you. Do you find it interesting? Yi Qing Luo was truly speechless towards Zhu Wu Xian. There was obviously a chance to stop the human face skin from merging, but Zhu Wu Xian didn't think much of it. She had to be suspicious. Was Zhu Wu Xian intentionally trying to make the human face skin merge with him? Just as Yi Qing Luo was going crazy, Zhu Wuxin's slightly amused voice rang in his ears. Very interesting. Interesting. Tell me, what's interesting about it? Yi Qing Luo was about to explode. Zhu Wu Xian's deep eyes gazed deeply at her. That gaze was mixed with a sliver of not obvious gentleness. Hugging you, smelling your scent, it's very interesting. Yi Qing Luo's face instantly turned black. Wasn't he being a little too honest? Suddenly, a powerful force locked onto her waist. She flung herself backward. She fell into a broad embrace. The man's domineering aura enveloped her. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and saw a face which was even darker than hers. Xian. Yi Qing Luo coughed softly as she softened her tone and called out to him while her arms circled around his waist. Don't be jealous, don't be jealous. You're the only one in my heart. The most important thing for us now is to retrieve the human face from Zhu Wu Xian's hands. I can't take it out. Dmo Xian's face was icy cold as he spoke in a cold voice. Yi Qing Luo circled Dmo Xian's neck with one hand as she kissed him on the cheek. Ida Xian, he was trying to save me, which was why he gave others the chance to take advantage of him. You don't want me to owe him a favor, right? Dmo Xian's arm suddenly tightened, pressing her tightly against his chest. After the human face skin fuses with the human body, there is only one way. The human face skin voluntarily leaves. The man's low and hoarse voice floated from above. Voluntary? Let people's faces fall off willingly? The battle between the human face skin and Dmo Xian had already injured its mental power. Now it could stay in Zhu Wu Xian's body to nourish. So how could it possibly leave willingly? Then Zhu Wu Exan. Yi Qing Luo really wanted to hammer Zhu Wu Exan the brat to death. The human face skin was such a dangerous thing, and he actually didn't have any vigilance at all. Chapter 3077. Yi Qing Luo nestled in Dmo Xian's arms as she walked a few steps towards Hell Palace's side. Yi Qing Luo wanted to turn back several times to take a look at Zhu Wu Exan, but she was held back by Dmo Xian's arm, stopping her movements. Ah, Xian! Yi Qing Luo's little hand hugged Dmo Xian's waist as she called out softly. That human face is really dangerous. If Zhu Wu Exan is controlled by that human face, then what should we do? It was no wonder that Dmo Xian was so angry. If it was her, seeing Dmo Xian being hugged by another woman in front of her, no matter what the reason was, she was definitely more irritable than Dmo Xian. He would even tear apart that woman who had hugged Dmo Xian. So it was natural for Dmo Xian to be jealous and angry. But this was the logic behind it. However, Chu Wuxin was trying to save her, which was why this shameless person had the opportunity to take advantage of him. If she really didn't care, she would be too cold-blooded, being manipulated by a shameless person, then kill him. Dmo Xian spat out a sentence that was neither cold nor warm. There was even a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. Ah, Xian! Yi Qing Luo's voice turned coquettish as she circled her arms around his neck. You can't say it like that. Before there is any evidence to prove that Zhu Wuxin's appearance is related to human face. If he dies, it will be because he died to save me, and I will owe him a life. Little Luo. The man's low and hoarse voice sounded a little gloomy. Yi Qing Luo, who was interrupted, raised her head in a daze. She raised her head. Her chin was held by the man's slender fingers. The man's peach blossom eyes were flowing with a cold glint. The ripples were as deep as an abyss, with no end in sight. I really don't like it when you use such a tone to talk to me because of him. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. I don't like hearing his name from your mouth. His extremely possessive words made Yi Qing Luo's long eyelashes tremble uncontrollably. Her eyes met his. After a long while, he slowly closed his eyes and lowered his eyelids. Yes, think from another perspective. She absolutely did not like to hear any other woman's name from Dmo Xian's mouth. Even she herself could not accept this. What right did he have to force Dmo Xian to accept it? Because I love you too much. So he cared too much. Because he cared too much. Therefore, no one else could get their hands on it. I'm sorry. Yi Qing Luo lowered her eyes and apologized in a low voice. Dmo Xian's hand slid away from her chin. One of his hands was still on her shoulder. Yi Qing Luo lowered her head and couldn't see the man's expression. He could only hear a soft sigh of helplessness above his head. Just as the atmosphere between the two of them gradually warmed up, Zhu Wu Exan, who was standing on the original spot, gazing deeply at Yi Qing Luo, suddenly opened his mouth. My hand hurts a lot. There was not the slightest fluctuation in his voice, nor did he sound like he was in pain. Yi Qing Luo raised her head slightly as she glanced sideways at Zhu Wu Exan. Yi Qing Luo, my right palm is extremely painful. Zhu Wu Exan was extremely serious as he repeated the sentence. Yi Qing Luo's vision drooped downwards as she looked at Zhu Wu Exan's right hand, which was hanging by his side. That was the hand that was fused into the human skin's body just now. Pain? Was it because the human skin had started to invade Zhu Wu Exan's body? If you don't come over and help me up, I might die from the pain. Zhu Wu Exan continued, speaking expressionlessly. Yi Qing Luo's petite body stiffened slightly. Chapter 3078. Her heart trembled. She shut her eyes fiercely as she hugged Dmo Xian's waist. Let's go back to the palace. There was no need for her to hesitate any further. As a woman who had already decided to stay for life and had a fiancé, She indeed shouldn't have given Zhu Wu Xian any hope. She couldn't do it herself to accept a lady who adored Dmo Xian by his side. She couldn't ask Dmo Xian to do it. She couldn't be that selfish towards Zhu Wu Xian. Right from the start, she had already expressed it very clearly. But Zhu Wu Xian continued to do things his own way, ignoring her wishes. He had to pester her endlessly. She could only say her apologies. To her, no one was more important than Xian. Yiqing Luo held Dmo Xian's arm and was about to leave. The man next to her stopped in his tracks, with no intention to leave. Yiqing Luo raised her head in puzzlement as she looked at Dmo Xian. Xian, what's the matter? Dmo Xian's slender fingers caressed her cheek. His narrow peach blossom eyes were filled with a deep glint as his thin lips curled into a smile. His eyes seemed to be filled with a pool of spring water. Silly lass. He sighed softly as his low and hoarse voice was filled with unspeakable pampering. I stopped you because I wanted to see what kind of place I occupy in your heart. Dmo Xian's voice became deeper. A faint magnetism passed through her eardrums. It numbed Yiqing Luo's heart. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened slightly as she looked at Dmo Xian's charming eyes as she blinked. Dmo Xian's arms tightened as he hugged her petite body tightly in his arms. He rested his chin on her shoulder. Getting closer, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the man's warm breath spraying on her skin. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled slightly, as though something was tightly clasping her heart. It made her unable to describe what feeling she was feeling. She pursed her pink lips as she was about to say something. The man's thin lips came closer as his voice became softer. Sorry. I know I'm wrong. I shouldn't have tested your feelings towards me. She could tell. There was a hint of caution in his voice that was hard to detect. That tone which was filled with guilt made the words which Yiqing Luo wanted to say stuck in her throat. Seeing that Yiqing Luo remained silent, Dmo Xian's tone became even more aggrieved, as his arms wrapped even tighter. It's my pride causing mischief. It's my imagination that ran wild, testing your heart, Lil Luo. I really know I'm in the wrong. Can you forgive me? Towards Yiqing Luo's feelings towards him. It wasn't that Dmo Xian wasn't confident. It was just that Zhu Wuxin had appeared. This caused him to be extremely displeased. Because I love you too much. That was why he couldn't help but probe. Hearing Dmo Xian's slightly coquettish tone, Yiqing Luo didn't have any other thoughts in her heart at this moment. Dmo Xian was probing. It would indeed make her feel very uncomfortable. But this was also because of Zhu Wuxin's appearance. Other men, such as Gu Jingyu, because he knew that she had no connection with Gu Jingyu or any other man. There was no possibility of further development. But Zhu Wuxin was different. The person whom Zhu Wuxin adored was the former Yiqing Luo. After that, he saved her time and time again. It could be said that no matter if it was the promise in the past or the current life-saving feelings, she was unable to really treat Zhu Wuxin coldly. Chapter 3079. If she put herself in his shoes, she thought that she would definitely make the same attempt. Although Zhu Wu Xian was a busybody and reaped what he sowed. But after all, it was because he helped you to block the attack from the human face. Dmo Xian continued to speak. His tone was filled with disdain towards Zhu Wu Xian. Dmo Xian shot a glance at Zhu Wu Xian in disdain, and as though declaring, he kept the young lady in his arms. If he really dies here today, I'm afraid that you will remember him for the rest of your life. Hearing the man's childish words, Yiqing Luo was speechless, but a certain softness in her heart was slowly covered by warmth. In the knowledge of love, she and Dmo Xian were both beginners. They had to take one step at a time to slowly learn the lesson of love. How could she bear to blame Dmo Xian? Between the both of them, all sorts of pink bubbles started to spread. Zhu Wu Xian's chilly voice broke the atmosphere. Amen, if I can make her remember me for the rest of her life, it's not bad to die here. Yi Qing Luo, what on earth was this rascal trying to do? Dmo Xian's expression sunk. His icy cold gaze looked towards Zhu Wu Xian as he sneered. If you want to die, this lord can fulfill your wish, but absolutely not now. Zhu Wu Xian's chilly eyes met with Dmo Xian's as his lips curled upwards. Both parties were aggressive and no one was willing to give in. Not too far away, Lei and Feng were already dumbstruck as they looked at their own master in a daze. Previously, they had heard Feng talk about how the Overlord had thrown away his high and mighty Overlord status and face in front of their future mistress, turning into a loyal dog. They had always felt that Feng had been bribed by their future mistress. Hence, he would speak up for her. But today, they had seen it with their own eyes. Then they understood Feng was absolutely not exaggerating. The Overlord was in front of their future mistress. He didn't care about his face at all. Ever since they could remember, they had been following the Overlord's identity for more than 10 years. This was the first time they saw the Overlord being so gentle, so childish. Looked like the day when their future mistress would become the mistress of the Imperial Palace was not far away. Cough! Yi Qing Luo looked at the atmosphere between the both of them and coughed lightly. The both of you? How much longer do you intend to stare at me? Dmo Xian hugged Yi Qing Luo's slender waist tightly as he snorted coldly and retracted his gaze. Zhu Wuxin's eyes were cold. He slowly moved his gaze away. Then he let out a soft snort from his nostrils. Yi Qing Luo, these two people were really like a pair of enemies. Who knows, they might even be able to develop a romantic relationship between two lovers. This thought made Yi Qing Luo look at Dmo Xian and Zhu Wu Xian. Her gaze was filled with a strange emotion. She shook her head and tossed those messy thoughts out of her head. All right. The most important thing now is to deal with the matter of the human face skin. If the human face skin remains in Chu Wuxin's body, it will ultimately be a hidden danger. She raised her head and looked at Dmo Xian. To prove my innocence, I won't check on his arm, so you go ahead. Dmo Xian shot a disdainful glance at Zhu Wu Xian. I don't want. Zhu Wu Xian opened his mouth coldly. Yi Qing Luo, I'm doing this to save you. You should take care of me personally. Huh. Dmo Xian gave a cold laugh as he released Yi Qing Luo's waist and walked directly towards Zhu Wu Xian. Chapter 3080. It's not up to you whether you want it or not. Dmo Xian sneered. Zhu Wu Xian, you'd better get it straight, Lil Luo. Is this sovereign's woman? Zhu Wuxin's expression was cold. So what? She used to be mine, and she will be mine in the future. Dmo Xian's gaze turned cold. Stop your wishful thinking. A man who only knows how to pester, Lil Luo, will hate you even more. It doesn't matter if I hate her. Zhu Wuxin didn't care. As long as she's by my side, that's enough. Do you think you have that chance? Dmo Xian sneered. The murderous intent in his eyes kept surging. Yi Qing Luo, who was standing by the side, looked at the both of them. Because of checking the facial skin of the arm man, they were pushing and dodging each other. Then both sides drew their swords, and it seemed like they were about to fight at any moment. Yi Qing Luo felt that these two men should be hard to get along with each other peacefully, right? It was better to quickly settle the matter of human face and send Zhu Wuxin away. She coughed again, interrupting the electric current between them. Zhu Wuxin, the human face skin has just entered your body. It's still possible to take it out now. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's voice, the two of them who were at loggerheads shifted their sights onto Yi Qing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian narrowed his cold eyes and his brows rose as he stretched out his right hand towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Take you can? But I want you to help me. Dmo Xian's face immediately turned black. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. He really knew how to take advantage of others. Glancing at Dmo Xian's foul expression, Yi Qing Luo naturally couldn't really go up to help Zhu Wuexan. She pursed her pink lips and shook her head solemnly. The human face mask's target is me. If I help you take out the human face mask, I'll be giving it another chance to attack me. She paused for a moment, then continued seriously. Xian is the best choice because his power is enough to suppress human skin. Zhu Wuexan's expression turned colder. The coldness between her brows seemed to have thickened a little. His lips were tightly pursed into a straight line. Seeing the displeasure on Zhu Wuxin's face, Dmo Xian was delighted. He raised his peach blossom eyes. If you don't want to die, give me your hand. Zhu Wuxin did not move. He pursed his lips tightly, and his whole body exuded a cold aura. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased as she emphasized her tone. Zhu Wuexan, the reason why you were taken advantage of by that shameless person is because of me, so I can stand here and patiently advise you. But I've already done my best to advise you. If you really want to die, if you really want to be controlled by someone else's face, then it has nothing to do with me. You won't care about me anymore. He abruptly raised his head as his cold eyes met Yi Qing Luo's gaze. Yes, Yi Qing Luo replied coldly. Zhu Wuxin's eyes trembled, and a piercingly cold light flowed in his eyes. There was a moment of silence. He raised his right hand and stretched it out in front of Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian gave a cold laugh as he mercilessly pulled Zhu Wuexan's wrist over. Then the wind from his palm moved, and the gathered profound energy seeped into Zhu Wuxin's arm, searching for the movement of the human face. His actions were fast, ruthless, and accurate. It totally didn't give Zhu Wuexan any time to adapt. A series of actions, although Zhu Wuexan didn't make any sound. But from the cold sweat on his forehead and the tightly creased brows, it was obvious that he was enduring the pain. Yi Qing Luo looked at the both of them anxiously. It was until roughly 1 incensus time later, Dmo Xian released Zhu Wuexan's arm. Chapter 3081. Zhu Wuexan seemed as though he had lost all his energy as he staggered backwards with a pale face. His right arm hung loosely by the side of his body. His cold eyes lifted up slightly, coincidentally facing Yi Qing Luo's figure. He looked at Yi Qing Luo as he stretched out his little hand and pressed it gently on Dmo Xian's chest. That devastatingly beautiful face was filled with worry. He heard Yi Qing Luo asking Dmo Xian in a low voice if he felt uncomfortable anywhere, like Yi Qing Luo's heart was filled with Dmo Xian alone. Zhu Wuexan lowered his eyes as he fixed his gaze on his right arm. The one who was injured was obviously him, wasn't it? The one who should be cared for should be him, wasn't it? Why, Yi Qing Luo's first concern was Dmo Xian? Was this the difference between love and not love? Zhu Wuexan only felt that the air seemed to have solidified. He even found it difficult to breathe. Every breath he took, his heart felt as though it was being gripped tightly, so painful that his face turned pale, just as Zhu Wuexan felt that his heart was being torn apart, eroding him. A voice suddenly rang beside his ear. Zhu Wuexan, is your arm in pain? Why are you sweating so much? This voice was like the sound of nature as it instantly soothed the tearing pain in his heart. It was like a warm current filling up his heart. This strange feeling made Zhu Wuexan feel extremely unfamiliar. But when he raised his eyes, his pupils reflected the young lady's devastatingly beautiful face. He totally didn't have any sense of resistance. Seeing Zhu Wuexan staring at himself, not saying a word for some time, Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly as she got a little anxious. Zhu Wuexan, have you turned silly from the pain or something? Why aren't you saying anything? Zhu Wuexan's eyelashes moved. His cold eyes were flowing with light. He collected his eyes and slowly puffed out a gust of air from his nostrils. This gust of air was simply too soft. Yi Qing Luo didn't hear it clearly as she looked at him in puzzlement. Zhu Wu Exan repeated, "My right hand is in pain. Earlier when he tugged my hand, he used a lot of force. I suspect that he wants to destroy my right hand." As he was saying that, Zhu Wu Exan's icy cold gaze looked towards Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo expressed that to use such a calm as still water tone to complain, this feeling was really awkward. Zhu Wuxin lowered his head again and looked at his right hand that could not be moved. He said, "If you don't take care of me, my right hand might be broken by him tomorrow." Yi Qing Luo. She was just about to express that it was rare for Zhu Wuexan to say such a long speech. Then he heard Zhu Wuxin's next sentence. Yi Qing Luo face-bombed speechlessly. "Young man, isn't this your motive?" He could even complain to her with a straight face, rubbing his nose against her face. It could be seen that Zhu Wuxin was not really about to die of pain like he said. She simply retracted her gaze and looked at Dmo Xian. "Ah, Xian, can the human face be taken out?" "I can't take it out." Dmo Xian held her in his arms as his tone was cold. "I'm not joking. The only way to make the human face skin leave the body is if the human face skin willingly leaves the body. Even if I use my strength to force it, if it's not willing, the one who gets hurt will only be Zhu Wuexan." Still, it couldn't be done? Could it be that if the human face skin was unwilling to leave, then Zhu Wuexan would have to suffer the erosion of the human face skin? If it was controlled by that human face skin, she wasn't sure if she could do anything to Zhu Wuexan. Furthermore, Chapter 3082. Yin Qi was extremely harmful to the human body. If it stayed in a person's body for a long period of time, Zhu Wuexan's body would definitely be greatly affected. The human face skin in Zhu Wuexan's body won't be able to hide for long. Dmo Xian's large palm covered Yi Qing Luo's head as he gently rubbed it. His peripheral vision glanced sideways at Zhu Wuexan as his lips tugged coldly. The nutrients that the human face skin needs can only be absorbed through the human face. Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up. "I understand. The human face skin in Zhu Wuexan's body has no way to absorb Zhu Wuexan's nutrients. The human face skin needs nutrients to maintain its own consciousness, as well as the absorption of Yin Qi." Dmo Xian explained patiently. "Once the human face skin's nutrients are completely depleted, it will automatically leave Zhu Wuexan's body. By then, the human face skin, which has lost its nutrients, totally has no energy to resist." Yi Qing Luo hugged Dmo Xian's arm. "Then wait for the human face skin to leave Zhu Wuexan's body on its own." How long does it take for the human face skin's nutrients to be depleted? Mentioning this question, Dmo Xian's face instantly turned black. After some time, he squeezed out a sentence. "Based on the human face skin's ability, at least half a month, at most 3 to 4 months. Yi Qing Luo was stunned. When her vision swept past Zhu Wuexan, she suddenly understood why Dmo Xian's face suddenly turned black. The human face skin was hiding in Zhu Wuexan's body. They wanted to control the human face skin and find the clues behind the human face skin from it. They must wait for the human face skin to leave Zhu Wuexan's body and take the opportunity to control it. But when the human face skin would leave Zhu Wuexan's body was totally uncertain. This also meant that they must keep Zhu Wuexan by their side, constantly paying attention to the human face skin hiding in Zhu Wuexan's body, apart from being able to restrain a person's face in time when it falls off. It was also to prevent the human face skin from quietly leaving when they were not around, and then make a comeback. After all, this human face skin was not only disgusting, it was also extremely disturbing. to make Zhu Wu Xian stay by their side for half a month to a few months. No wonder Dmo Xian's expression was so ugly. This was indeed a difficult problem. Could it be? Were they really going to let Zhu Wuxin stay by their side until they lost their dignity? Based on the way Zhu Wu Xian and Dmo Xian interacted with each other, Yi Qing Luo expressed the two of them would definitely start fighting at any moment. Just as Yi Qing Luo was filled with anxiety, suddenly a beam of golden light fell from the sky from the underworld palace that was emitting a dark green light. It landed on the rock wall and cut open a huge hole. Everyone was startled, and they looked at the sudden golden light with vigilance. When Yi Qing Luo's gaze met that golden light, her slender brows creased tightly. This golden light, this hole, why does he look so familiar? He had a feeling that he had seen it somewhere before. Yi Qing Luo swiftly searched through her memories in her mind. Just as he was about to catch something, the huge hole that was flickering with golden light suddenly opened to both sides. Soon after, a dozen golden figures walked out from the opening. The dozen or so figures were extremely fast. It was neat and orderly, but in a blink of an eye, they were already standing neatly in front of Yi Qing Luo and the others. 10 overpeople were dressed in golden shiny armors, giving off a terrifying glow. Chapter 3083. Disdainful of all living beings, arrogant, imposing manner. Even the air froze in awe. Their appearance was like 1,000 catty boulder, pressing down one by one. Even the usually flamboyant and fearless underworld palaces, people all widened their eyes in horror. "It's you!" Yi Qing Luo's vision fell onto the man who was standing right in front. That man had a solemn expression, with an upright and plain-spoken expression. When he saw Yi Qing Luo, the man's eyes revealed an astonished look. Librarian of Balance. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a sweet smile. Long time no see. These 10 overpeople were not others. They were the Librarian of Balance, who was attracted by the eruption of her profound jade heart during the battle in the West Continent. The man in the lead was the Librarian of Balance, whom she had met the last time. He was also the boss of these 10 over Librarian of Balance. "You!" The librarian stared at Yi Qing Luo. His vision swept across her body and immediately fell onto the bloody Bai Mei who was lying on the ground. He frowned and spoke solemnly. "You are the one who," she reported, "using illegal means to sneak into the upper realm from the lower realm?" From Yi Qing Luo's body, the librarian didn't feel that she had the qualifications to be in the earth realm. But thinking of Yi Qing Luo, that mysterious power, the librarian's expression had some changes. Yi Qing Luo's smile deepened. Her long and narrow eyes also curved. "It should be. My father. Seems that among the people present, only I am from the lower realm." The 10 over librarian behind him had met Yi Qing Luo previously in the West Continent. They were also clear that their own librarian seemed to have some misgivings towards Yi Qing Luo, hearing that the person who was reported was her. Each of their faces revealed a complicated expression. According to the main god's law, as a person from the lower realm, sneaking into the upper realm has already violated the peace between the realms. Moreover, you were reported by someone from the earth realm, so I have the right to bring you back to the heavenly realm for investigation. The librarian looked at Yi Qing Luo solemnly. "Miss Yi, I believe you won't make things difficult for me." Yi Qing Luo raised her brows with a smile which didn't look like a smile. "Of course, this is your duty." Many thanks to Yi Qing Luo for seeing the big picture. Librarian saw that Yi Qing Luo wasn't as eloquent as the previous time, which made him unable to rebuke her, and even cooperated with her. So he heaved a sigh of relief. If possible, he really didn't want to meet Yi Qing Luo again. The librarian didn't want to complicate matters further, so he immediately picked up the shackles and walked towards Yi Qing Luo. But before the historian could even get close to Yi Qing Luo, A majestic and terrifying dark force rose from the ground. Transforming into bursts of profound waves, it laid horizontally in front of Yi Qing Luo, blocking the historical administrator's footsteps. The scribe stopped in his tracks and looked in the direction where the profound energy had come from with a dark expression. It's been a long time since we last met. Are the scribes of the heavenly law realm capable of taking away my people right under my nose? His low, husky, magnetic voice was extremely intimidating. Dmo Xian's sleeves fluttered, and the profound energy that was stirring up on the ground turned into a hurricane as it struck out. The historian was forced to take a few steps back. When the scribe heard the voice, his face was filled with shock. He looked in the direction of the voice. In his pupils, a tall figure was reflected. The purple robe fluttered, as though it had opened up a pair of wings, overflowing with splendor and glaring. When the historian's vision fell onto that person's face, his entire person was stunned on the spot. Chapter 3084. The historiographer's heart thumped hard. Since the last time in the West Continent, the historiographer knew that this lady named Yi Qing Luo had some kind of relationship with that mysterious and respectable Overlord. Perhaps she was just a pet that the Overlord used to pass the time, but the historiographer had never thought of this. The Lord Dizun, who could make the realm lord of the heavenly law realm retreat when the name of Dizun was mentioned, he actually fell in love with a lady from the lower realm. If it wasn't for the fact that he had personally witnessed the Overlord holding Yi Qing Luo in his arms with a tender and loving look, the historiographer and the other historians would absolutely not believe it. Although Yi Qing Luo was indeed devastatingly beautiful as a flower, but she was after all a lady from the lower realm. The Overlord's status was respectable. How could a lady from the lower realm be worthy of him? The expressions of the historiographer and the other historians were extremely complicated and unpredictable. My little Luo is kind-hearted and doesn't want to make things difficult for you. Dmo Xian's low voice rang again. But I don't care if you make things difficult for me. His voice was as calm as water, extremely calm. But when the historiographer and the other historians heard it, they suddenly felt a chill from the soles of their feet to their heads. The historiographer's expression was extremely ugly. I am only following orders. Dmo Xian's thin lips curled frivolously. Following orders? If the historiographer is really such a person who values orders and missions, then you wouldn't easily let go of someone who should be arrested, isn't it? His voice revealed a trace of ridicule. The historiographer broke out in cold sweat. Dmo Xian's words had a hidden meaning. The historiographer heard it clearly. It looked like the last time when he was about to capture the Dark Forces people, the news of them being abducted halfway when they were heading to the heavenly realm. The Overlord already knew about it. The historiographer tried his best to restrain the panic in his heart and tried his best to remain calm. Since the Overlord has spoken personally, I guess this matter is just a misunderstanding. He waved his hand and led his men to retreat towards the golden opening. Retreat! When the court officials saw Dmo Xian, they knew that their mission would not be completed today. Immediately, they retreated behind the scribe in an orderly manner. Wait. The young girl's clear voice was clear and pleasant to listen to. The dozen or so scribes immediately stopped in their tracks. The young lady leaned into Dmo Xian's arms as she lazily raised her slender brows and smiled lazily. It's rare for me to meet Mr. Librarian. Why is Mr. Librarian in such a hurry to leave? The prefect's back stiffened and cold sweat oozed from his forehead. He turned around stiffly and said, Miss Yi, we still have other tasks, and it's not convenient for us to stay any longer. Isn't the Keeper of Scribes on a mission? Yi Qing Luo tilted her head in puzzlement and smiled innocently. After all, I'm indeed not from the Earth domain and was reported by someone. Why didn't you investigate clearly and just let me go? This is a misunderstanding. The scribe's brain spun rapidly as he tried to think of a way to explain. We received a report and rushed here because we were worried that someone would use illegal means to sneak into the land. This would affect the balance between the land and the mortal world. But Miss Yi is the lover of His Majesty, so she definitely did not use illegal means. Chapter 3085. Right. How would they dare to say anything wrong? Yi Qingluo smiled. This smile, as compared to the previous languid smile, was a little more strange. It was obviously a beautiful smile. However, the historiographer only felt a creepy feeling spread in his heart. As expected, Yi Qingluo smiled lightly and said, "Since the matter between me and the heavenly Tao realm has been settled, then now, it's time for the matter between you and me to settle it properly." The historian's expression congealed. Miss Yi, what matter do you want to settle with me?" Yi Qingluo's lips curled up as she smiled sweetly. Without beating around the bush, she stared at the historian's eyes and spat out 4 words. Dark, force. Indeed, the historian's face sunk slightly. He shifted his gaze and frowned. This matter. Heaven Realm has already formulated a corresponding decision. Miss Yi need not ask any further. Did you not hear me clearly, Keeper of the Annals? Yi Qingluo's smile deepened. What I said is the matter between me and you has nothing to do with Heaven Realm. The historian's expression congealed. Yi Qingluo continued to smile. Initially, I trusted Librarian Overseer and wasn't willing to make things difficult for you, so I handed over the Dark Forces, that bunch of motley crew, as well as Yuhan to you. But how did Librarian Overseer betray my trust towards you? Her tone was very calm, and there was a hint of a sweet smile on her face. A pair of smiling eyes stared deeply at him. But the more Yi Qingluo behaved in this manner, the more the historian felt, the more apprehensive he was. He was unwilling to admit that he was scared by a 15-year-old young lady. But the truth was so. His fingers tightened as he spoke with a steely expression. This matter is my responsibility, but I didn't intentionally let them go. Yi Qingluo kept her smile as she squinted her eyes. Her face exuded some coldness. Explain clearly what happened that day. That bunch of people from the Dark Forces and Yuhan, other than the Wolf Saint technique, should have been brought to the Heaven Realm by the historian and imprisoned in the Heaven Prison. But the people from the Dark Forces, not only were they not imprisoned, instead they joined the secluded palace. They stirred up all sorts of trouble. In addition, Yuhan was also jumping around. Even if the historian of balance didn't come looking for her, she wanted to ask the balance historian what was going on. The historiographer's expression was very ugly. The events of that day. It could be said that this was the most embarrassing moment in his history as the balance palm. If it wasn't for the fact that the Heaven Tao Realm Master didn't care about this matter, he might not be able to sit still in his position as the historiographer. The scribe frowned and wanted to avoid this topic, but when he felt DMO Xian's chilly gaze, like a sharp blade, cutting into his body, in the end he couldn't withstand the pressure and told them what had happened that day. Mysterious power! After hearing what the librarian said, Yi Qingluo squinted her eyes slightly as she muttered these 4 words. She raised her head and looked at DMO Xian. Xian, these things, based on your strength, can you do it? The heavenly Tao rope was inexplicably severed. An invisible force formed a barrier that prevented the scribe and the other scribes from chasing after the Dark Forces and Yuhan. To be able to do this under the situation of not showing their faces, it could be seen how powerful the person behind this was. Chapter 3086. That means to say, the person who kidnapped the Dark Forces has the same ability as you. Yi Qingluo's tone was solemn. In this world, there shouldn't be many people who have the same ability as you. The historian of balance could travel between the various planes and maintain the balance of each plane. It was enough to prove that the historian of balance's ability was absolutely not weak. However, that invisible power was able to easily stop the historian of balance. To be able to snatch someone from the hands of hundreds of historian of balance without harming a single soldier, making the historian of balance could only watch helplessly, unable to do anything to resist. His ability was absolutely on par with DMO Xian. At least he was in existence around DMO Xian's level. I am also one of them. Being left aside, Zhu Wu Exan, who had no sense of existence for a long time, frowned as he spoke in a cold voice. His icy cold eyes fixed on Yi Qing Luo. My ability is not any worse than him, and I can totally snatch you from his hands. Yi Qing Luo. Her slender brows creased tightly as she stared at Zhu Wu Exan in a bad mood. Let's talk about serious matters. Don't mess things up. Saying that, her vision returned back to DMO Xian. Ah, Xian, think about it. Is there anyone whose ability is similar to yours? There's always someone better out there. There are many people who are stronger than me. DMO Xian shook his head. But currently, in my memory, I have not met such a person. Yi Qing Luo. Did he need to be so confident? Just how powerful was her man, roaming around various planes? Yet he had not met anyone who had the same ability as him? No wonder. The Overlord who made the upper realm tremble in fear. Awesome. Librarian took the opportunity to ask. The matter has been explained clearly. Can we go back to report? Of course. Yi Qing Luo smiled sweetly as she nodded. Librarian was still hesitant, afraid that Yi Qing Luo would play some tricks. More than a dozen people carefully moved towards the golden opening. But they heard a young lady's voice coming from behind. That's right. Librarian's heart suddenly tightened. Why is Librarian so nervous? I'm just reminding Librarian, in case in future Heavenly Realm will bear the infamy. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly. Her voice was gentle, as though it didn't have any lethality. The Librarian turned around and forced a smile. Please enlighten me, Miss Yi. Looking at the treasurer, who was obviously filled with melancholy, but still forced a smile, Yi Qing Luo's smile grew wider. The feeling of bullying others with force was not bad at all. The heavenly law realm exists to maintain the balance between the major realms. You also exist to maintain the balance between the major realms. After Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth, her tone turned solemn. I believe that all of you are aware of the recent changes in the Nirvana realm. If someone really wants to use the Nirvana realm to destroy the balance of the various realms, after all the plans are implemented, even if all the historians of the heavenly law realm are mobilized, I'm afraid it will be useless. The historiographer's bitter expression froze, and his eyes turned solemn. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand. That's all I have to say. The rest is up to you. The librarian's expression was complicated. His lips moved, but in the end he didn't say anything. He just cupped his fists. Librarian Lord, don't be in such a hurry to leave. Suddenly, another spiritual body floated over. Chapter 3087. Bye. The historiographer's lips trembled and his eyes widened as if he wanted to say something. Baisu's spiritual body floated and interrupted him. Historiographer, are you forgetting something? The historiographer's words were stuck in his throat. However, his eyes were fixed on Baisu without blinking. Then he stammered, Forgetting what? Baisu smiled. Are you pretending not to notice the will-o-wisp candles around here? Such insidious things appearing in the underworld palace, and there are at least 1,000 of them. Isn't this a violation of the balance of the land? The historiographer's expression changed. Naturally, they had sensed the waves of Yin Qi coming from all directions. However, the historiographer hesitated for a moment and said cautiously, The will-o-wisp candles are indeed insidious, but it is also true that they belong to the land. This is not within our scope of responsibility. Baisu raised her eyebrows and crossed her arms in front of her chest. There was a layer of coldness on her beautiful face. It's not within your scope of responsibility and you don't care? This. The historiographer felt a headache coming on. Why was he so unlucky today? When he received a report from the land, he thought it was just someone from the lower bound who used some forbidden means to come to the land in pursuit of power. It was just a small matter. Unexpectedly, they were all people he could not afford to offend, and each one was more difficult to deal with than the other. In the face of Baisu's aggressiveness, the historiographer was full of anxiety. After a long while, he forced himself to say, This is indeed not within our scope of responsibility. Even if we want to do something, we can't. After saying this, the historiographer stared at Baisu's expression and immediately said, However, when I return to the heavenly law realm, I will definitely report this matter to the realm lord, and then the realm lord will report it to the upper bound. That was what Baisu had been waiting for. She stretched out her transparent hand and slowly patted the historiographer's shoulder. The hand of a spiritual body could not touch a physical body. However, the historiographer felt a huge pressure. It was as if a 1,000-kilogram boulder was pressing heavily on his shoulder. In that case, I'll have to trouble Lord Keeper of the Historiography to report this matter to the upper realms. Baisu's voice was light, as if she was having a casual chat. The librarian felt a chill down his spine. He nodded vigorously. Yes, of course. Baisu moved her hand away with a smile. Miss Bai, is there anything else? The scribe looked at Baisu's expression and asked tentatively. Baisu continued to smile. Yes. The librarian, he was so tired that he didn't want to resist anymore. Baisu glanced at Bai Mei, who was lying on the ground with a badly mutilated face. Bai Mei made a false report to the heavenly realm because of her personal grudges, slandering Yi Qing Luo for using extraordinary means to sneak into the earth realm and obstructing the normal order of the court officials. Shouldn't the court official handle this matter? The scribe followed Baisu's line of sight. When he saw Bai Mei's terrifying face, he frowned. Chapter 3088. The scribe was speechless. If he hadn't seen Baisu's domineering side just now, the scribe might have been deceived by Baisu. But now, hearing Baisu's words, the scribe knew Baisu's purpose clearly. He coughed softly and gave the two scribes behind him a look. The scribe understood and immediately stepped forward. He lifted Bai Mei up from the ground from both sides. Bai Mei, who had been mourning for her face, suddenly struggled. Sister, you can't do this to me. I've lost my face, and you still want to lock me up in the realm of heavenly law. How can you be so cruel? Bai Mei cried. Baisu cried even more helplessly than her. I don't want to do this, but I don't have time to accompany you, and I can't discipline you. So I let you do such a thing. Your body, hair, and skin belong to your parents. But you actually used this kind of method to change your face. Not only that, but you also absorbed Yin Qi, hurt others, and destroyed yourself. However, Bai Mei didn't listen to Baisu at all, and the words she said became even more unpleasant. Her face was forcibly torn off from her face. As she spoke, the blood on her face kept rolling down. Baisu turned her head, as if she couldn't bear to see Bai Mei like this. She sobbed and said, Now, in order to frame His Majesty's lover, you even made a false report. If not for His Majesty's kindness, if not, the consequences would not be as simple as being locked up. I'm trying to save you. Speaking of this, she was already choking with sobs. Mr. Scribe, I'll leave my sister to you. You don't have to respect me or His Majesty. As long as you can teach her what to do and what not to do, you can do whatever you want. Baisu took a deep breath and waved her hand. I hope Mr. Scribe can take good care of my poor sister. When her transformation is successful, I'll personally go to thank you and take her home. Bai Mei's screams and insults became even more unpleasant. Her face was covered with blood, and her white dress was dyed red. The scribe was also worried that if she stayed any longer, she would be involved in a series of things. Immediately, he called out to the scribe and carried Bai Mei to the direction of the golden entrance. Fortunately, this time no one stopped him. After the scribe disappeared through the golden opening with the other scribes, the golden light that illuminated the underworld palace also gradually dissipated. The interior of the underworld palace was once again enveloped by a dark green light. The gloomy and eerie atmosphere had returned. All right. Everyone has left, and the matter should be settled. Let's disperse. Bai Su drifted over leisurely, her slightly transparent spirit body wrapped tightly around Yi Qing Luo. Bai Su's beautiful eyes sized up Yi Qing Luo without blinking. He seemed to be examining something. Yi Qing Luo wasn't used to this feeling and took a few steps back unnaturally. Didn't you scram? Why did you come back? Dmo Xian pulled Yi Qing Luo into his arms, blocking Bai Su's sight. Bai Su floated backward and shrugged. My poor sister is still here. If you kill her in a fit of anger, I will lose my poor sister, won't I? Yi Qing Luo popped her head out from Dmo Xian's embrace. Chapter 3089. But Bai Su's words were indeed true. If she hadn't returned, even if Dmo Xian didn't kill Bai Mei, those people from Hell Palace would not let Bai Mei off. After all, Bai Mei's human face was obviously in cahoots with Ghost Fire Candle. Then Bai Mei would be in cahoots with Dark Palace, who made use of Hell Palace. All along, they were the ones who made use of others and hurt others. Now they had been schemed against. Everyone from Hell Palace was suppressing a raging fire in their hearts. If it wasn't for the fact that Dmo Xian and Bai Su were around, they might not be able to hold it in and vent their anger on Bai Mei. Dmo Xian squinted his long peach blossom eyes and didn't bother about Bai Su as he looked at the person in his arms. How do you want to settle the people from Hell Palace? It could be said that with Dmo Xian around, even if Yi Qing Luo killed the people from Hell Palace in the Earth Realm, the balance historian wouldn't come looking for trouble. Presumably, that historian didn't want to meet Yi Qing Luo anymore. Yi Qing Luo wrapped one arm around his waist as she pondered for a moment. Temporarily. Don't kill them. The people from Hell Palace had been made use of by Dark Palace. In terms of revenge, Xie Ba and Leng Yan, these two proud and arrogant people had been crippled. They had become useless people who needed people to serve them even when they were eating, drinking, and defecating. To them, this was the most severe punishment. As for the others, since Dark Palace liked to play such tricks, she might as well retaliate. Like Hell Palace, a place where the united and fearless lunatics gathered. Just like Dark Palace, they were perverts who liked to cultivate those sinister, forbidden cultivation methods. After finding out that Dark Palace had schemed against them, they wanted to use their power to nurture Yin Qi and human face. How could they possibly let Dark Palace off? Dark Palace wanted to make use of Hell Palace to deal with her and Dmo Xian. Then they could also make use of Hell Palace to deal with Dark Palace. Apparently, Dmo Xian had the same thought as her. The two of them smiled at each other as their brows were filled with warmth and sweetness. Cough. Cough, cough. A hurried cough was heard. The two of them immediately looked over. Zhu Wuxian's face was cold as he raised his right hand. My hand hurts. Dmo Xian's brows creased slightly as he squinted his peach blossom eyes in displeasure. Now you know pain. Yi Qing Luo squinted at him. You deserve to die from the pain. If it wasn't for the fact that he refused to let go of her, how could a human face have the chance to hide in his body? Why did he cause so much trouble? Now, in order to force Chu Wuxin out of his skin, who knew how long he had to keep Chu Wuxin by their side, not to mention that between Chu Wuxin and Dmo Xian, there was a possibility that a fight could break out any time. Let's talk about what happened in the Nirvana realm, about the palace of gloomy darkness, regarding the corpse puppets, the matter of gathering sacred beast pearls. She simply did not have any extra time to take care of Zhu Wuxin. Zhu Wuxin's face became even darker and colder. You think that I shouldn't be in pain. Can you stop messing around? Towards Zhu Wuxian's train of thought, Yi Qingluo was rather helpless. Given Zhu Wuxin's character, she couldn't tell him directly that she wasn't the person who had made a promise to him when they were young. Zhu Wuxin was the kind of person who would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. If he knew that she had taken over the original Yi Qingluo's body, then there was a high possibility that they would become enemies. Becoming enemies with Zhu Wuxin was absolutely a headache. Zhu Wuxin's eyes were sinister, and his deep cold eyes were deep and gloomy. Chapter 3090. Zhu Wuxian's action made Yi Qingluo turn pale with fright, just as that palm was about to strike Zhu Wuxian's right hand. Suddenly, a ray of purple light flashed past. It set off a profound wave in the air, blocking Zhu Wuxian's palm. Dmo Xian retracted his hand as his brows were filled with impatience. If you want to die, then die further away. Don't dirty Lil Luo'er's eyes. Zhu Wuxian's left hand was immobilized by a ray of purple light. His face still bore an indifferent expression. Yi Qingluo frowned as she strode towards him. Zhu Wuxian, do you know what you're doing? Seeing her getting closer, Zhu Wuxian raised his head slightly. His thin lips curled up as he revealed an undetectable smile. On that cold face, the contours of his contours became gentler. His cold and deep eyes gazed deeply at her, as though he wanted to see her into his eyes, into the depths of his heart. That feeling made Yi Qingluo not feel used to it. You feel that it's wrong for the human face skin to merge into my body. I want to chop off my right hand in this way. The human face skin will no longer be in my body. His thin lips moved slightly as his voice was extremely icy cold. But if one listened carefully, she could still tell the lightness and smiling intent in his tone. Yi Qingluo, this was probably a self-masochistic pervert? Why did she feel that? Was Zhu Wuxian using another method to flirt with her? She didn't like it and felt that it was wrong. So he wanted to chop off his own right hand so that she would like it, so that she wouldn't be angry? What kind of flirting technique was this? Who told him? She totally didn't feel touched all right. Yi Qingluo's lips twitched as she no longer had the energy to ridicule him. Towards Zhu Wuxian, she couldn't see through what he was thinking. Her slender brows creased as she stared at Zhu Wuxian with a solemn expression as she said word by word, "The human face skin is already in your body. This is an indisputable fact. What we need to do now is to wait for the human face skin to lose its nutrients and escape from your body before subduing it. I'm very serious and solemn reminding you that it's not because you chop off your own hand that I will feel guilty and accept you. It's not that I'll pity you, sympathize with you, and accept you because you've made yourself miserable and pitiful." Yi Qingluo's words were heavy. It was also blatantly shattering Zhu Wuxin's feelings for her. Seeing Zhu Wuxin's face turn pale, the light in his eyes dimmed. Yi Qingluo shifted her gaze away, not regretting what she had said. She gave Zhu Wuxin hope and then watched as Zhu Wuxin kept pestering her. This was truly cruel to Zhu Wuxin. If you don't love, don't give me hope. Also, don't be ambiguous. After a long while, Yi Qingluo saw that Zhu Wuxian didn't open his mouth for a long time, so she announced her decision. The human face skin is in your body, so before it leaves your body, you will stay by Xian and my side. Zhu Wuxin raised his head. His jet-black hair was scattered messily on his face. A faint smile appeared on his grave and stern face. "All right," he replied. Yi Qingluo met with Zhu Wuxian's deep gaze, and that gaze contained some gentleness. She frowned, and in case Zhu Wuxian misunderstood anything, she explained, "The human face skin's yin qi is very heavy. If you're controlled by the human face skin, At least a Xian is able to suppress it, so we let you follow us. Amen, Zhu Wu Xian swiftly responded. Chapter 3091. Why did it feel like Zhu Wuxin really wanted to stay by their side? However, since Zhu Wuxin was so cooperative, the rest could be ignored. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath as she looked at Zhu Wu Xian. Then your death god castle, as well as other matters, leave it to your trusted people to handle. You will return with us. She paused. Just as she was about to say the word Imperial Palace, she stopped herself. No, Chu Wuxin and Mo Xian were obviously not on friendly terms. It was not that she did not believe in Zhu Wuxin, but it was related to the Imperial Palace, it was related to Mo Xian. If Zhu Wuxin entered the Darch Palace, he would know the correct location of the Darch Palace. Anything that would damage the Imperial Palace. She could not forgive Zhu Wuxin, nor could she forgive herself. She pursed her lips and was about to say 3 Spring Sect. Her delicate body was caught by a force, and her body was pulled into a warm embrace. When we arrive at the Darch Palace, just arrange a room for us. Mo Xian cast a cold glance at Zhu Wu Xian. The Imperial Palace's spiritual qi is able to suppress the yin energy in the human face, reducing the chances of you being controlled. Zhu Wuxin raised his eyebrows. His cold face was devoid of any emotion as he indifferently spat out a word. Oh! Following that, he shifted his gaze onto Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo frowned as she didn't want to continue tangling with Zhu Wu Xian. She had said a few more words to Zhu Wuxin just now. She was so close to Dizun that she was already jealous. Let's return to Nirvana Realm. Yi Qing Luo wrapped her arms around Mo Xian's waist as she spoke. Mo Xian embraced her, and both of them returned to the carriage. Zhu Wu Xian's gaze was deeply fixated on Yi Qing Luo's back, and it was until the veil blocked her figure before he lifted his foot and walked over. Before he even got close to the carriage. Allez, and you were already standing in front of the sedan. Young Master Zhu, if you are exhausted, I can lend you my battle pet. Zhu Wuxin's gaze landed on the carriage. That's the exclusive seat of the Overlord and Madam. Allez deliberately emphasized the words Madam. Zhu Wuxin's brows furrowed indiscernibly. After pondering for a long time, he closed his eyes. Immediately after, a green light flashed, and a deafening howl resounded. In front of him was a giant green wolf with fur that was as sharp as blades. His sharp fangs shone with a cold light under the dark green light. Zhu Wu Xian leaped onto the back of the green wolf. Allez and you looked at Green Wolf's expression with a hint of surprise. But soon he put away the expression on his face and stood by the side of the carriage. Little Nine's tail moved, dragging the carriage. It slowly floated in the air. Lord Dizun, Lady D, when the people from the Underworld Palace saw that they were planning to leave, they immediately grew anxious. Old Lai held his wound and staggered forward. Lord Overlord, Madam Emperor, these ghost fires, what should we do with the ghost fire candles? The rest of the people from the Underworld Palace also rushed forward. Lord Overlord, Madam Emperor, although the Underworld Palace has never been principled, we have our own rules. This time in the Nirvana Realm, we, the Infernal Palace, are responsible for hurting the Lady D. Since the Lady D didn't pursue this matter, the Infernal Palace owes you a favor. If there's anything that you need the Infernal Palace's help with, the Infernal Palace will definitely go through water and tread on fire. Ghost fire candles. Whoever taught you how to make them, find that person to help you settle these ghost fire candles. Yi Qing Luo lifted the veil as she spoke in a calm tone. Chapter 3092. The faces of the people from the Underworld Palace turned solemn. After exchanging glances, they seemed to have understood the meaning behind Yi Qing Luo's words. A trace of viciousness flashed across Old Lai's eyes. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. We will definitely look for the Palace of Darkness and demand an answer. I only hope that when the time comes, you can still maintain your current thoughts. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes swept past the crowd from Underworld Palace calmly. That bunch of people from secluded Darkness Palace. Not only are their methods outstanding, their control over people's hearts is also outstanding. In other words, if they came looking for them, the gloomy palace would naturally think of a way to appease them. The faces of the Underworld Palace's people were filled with anger. The human heart? We don't have a so-called heart. We were tricked by Gloomy Palace once, but we will not be tricked a second time. Yi Qing Luo smiled. I hope so. Regardless of whether Missy accepts it or not, according to the rules of the Hell Palace, the Hell Palace owes you a favor. In the future, if Missy comes to the Earth Domain and has any needs, the Underworld Palace will definitely do its best. The people of Underworld Palace insisted on their own rules. Of course, the reason why they chose to adhere to the rules of the Underworld Palace was not only because they had to abide by the rules that they themselves had set. Instead, the power behind Yi Qing Luo. Everyone could see that, although Yi Qing Luo was just a lady from the lower realm. But the people around Yi Qing Luo, each of their statuses was more impressive than the other. Even the historian of balance from the heavenly law realm did not want to provoke her. No matter how unafraid they were of death, they weren't willing to become enemies with Yi Qing Luo. Most importantly, they had a common enemy, Abyss Palace. Yi Qing Luo and the rest left the Hell Palace. The carriage floated in the sky, followed by a huge green wolf. Through the veil, Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel Zhu Wu Xian's burning gaze. Yi Qing Luo wanted to open her mouth several times to make Zhu Wu Xian shift his gaze away. She was also worried that if she said it out loud, her boyfriend's vinegar jar would overturn again. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she leaned her petite body further into Mo Xian's arms. Mo Xian's long arm gently embraced her as he lowered his eyes to look at the person in his embrace. His deep inky eyes shot a cold glance at the person who was following behind him. A dark glint flashed across his eyes. Following that, he lowered his head and gently kissed Yi Qing Luo's hair. Lil Luo, rest for a while. We'll reach the Imperial Palace very soon. Yi Qing Luo didn't quite understand the meaning behind Mo Xian's words, just as he was about to raise his head. But when he moved, she could smell the elegant sandalwood scent on the man's body. Bit by bit, it surrounded her body. The smell of sandalwood was extremely elegant and intoxicating, just as his body and mind relaxed. Her eyelids became heavier and heavier. After that, he fell into a deep slumber. Mo Xian lowered his eyes as he listened to the girl's gentle breathing. He gently moved the girl's body into a comfortable position in his arms. Then he raised a hand and his sleeve fluttered. In the blink of an eye, he took off his purple robe and wrapped it around the young girl's body. How much longer are you going to watch? Mo Xian hugged Yi Qing Lu tightly as he spoke in a cold voice. Outside the carriage, it was silent. Mo Xian's eyes turned cold as his voice turned even colder. No matter how you watch, Lil Luo will not be yours. Your actions will only make Lil Luo feel troubled. Perhaps it was because of the mention of Yi Qing Luo. Outside the carriage, a huge shadow immediately shrouded over. Chapter 3093. Zhu Wuxin was lying on the back of the green wolf. The huge green wolf's thick fur wrapped around his body, revealing only his grave and stern face. Zhu Wuxin looked coldly at the two people in the carriage who were tightly hugging each other. His black eyes shone with a deep light. If it bothers you, give her back to me. His voice was calm and cold. As long as she's mine, she won't be troubled. Zhu Wu Xian's words made Mo Xian's brows creased even tighter. Zhu Wu Xian Lil Luo was never yours. What do you mean by returning it to you? What do you think little Luo is? Treat her as my woman, Zhu Wuxin said with a sinister expression. Zhu Wu Xian. Dmo Xian's eyes were deep and serene as he spat out these 3 words in an icy, cold tone. All of a sudden, flames erupted from his body. Even the 4 maids and 2 protectors outside the carriage couldn't help but shiver. Zhu Wuxian's thin lips curled up. There was not the slightest hint of a smile on his face. Instead, there was a hint of disdain and mockery. Trying to persuade me to give up Yi Qing Luo? Are you trying to persuade me to fulfill your love? His black eyes narrowed, and coldness spread from his pupils. There was also a hint of mockery in his tone. What a pity. I, Zhu Wuxin, have never been a gentleman, and I don't have the thought of helping others achieve their dreams. His voice turned gloomier and gloomier, as though it was wrapped in frost. Yi Qing Luo is mine, the future will only be mine. If I can't get her, I'd rather destroy her than to fulfill your wishes. The expression on Dmo Xian's face turned increasingly ruthless and gloomy. The might released from Xiao Chen's body caused the surrounding curtains to flutter wildly. The 4 maids were so nervous that they didn't dare to move. Yu glanced at Zhu Wuxian and cursed him 100 times in her heart. This Zhu Wuxin was seriously too ignorant of what was good for him. He dared to snatch Di Zun's woman, and he even dared to be so arrogant. If the Overlord was angry, he could tear him apart with his bare hands. Even Ayu and Ale, the 2 guardians, were somewhat unable to withstand the powerful pressure. They turned their pleading gazes towards the mistress of the imperial palace, who was sleeping soundly in Dmo Xian's arms. Di Zun was furious. Only the mistress could pacify him. However, no matter how arrogant the Di Zun was, and how majestic his aura was, Yi Qing Luo wasn't affected at all. Her lips still hung a faint smile as her hands wrapped around Dmo Xian's waist. Obviously, she was having a sweet dream about Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian had already tried his best to suppress his urge to kill Zhu Wuxian. He understood Yi Qing Luo. He knew his woman. To Yi Qing Luo, she thought that she had taken over the original identity of Yi Qing Luo. Because of her existence, she had gone against the original Yi Qing Luo and Zhu Wuxian's promise when they were young. She more or less felt a little guilty towards Zhu Wuxin. In particular, Zhu Wuxin had saved her several times because of the promise he made when they were young. Yi Qing Luo was very grateful towards Zhu Wuxian. If he really killed Zhu Wuxin, there would definitely be a barrier between him and Yi Qing Luo. Dmo Xian's eyelids drooped as he gazed deeply at the person in his arms. Soon after, he forcefully shut his eyes as he restrained the vicious aura around him. Zhu Wuxian didn't have the mood to tangle with Dmo Xian any further. For a moment, they were both speechless. This strange atmosphere, it made the 2 guardians shiver uncontrollably. The 2 of them were in a stalemate. They were afraid. The 2 of them remained silent. They also felt their hairs standing on end. They were very suspicious. Letting Zhu Wuxian stay in the imperial palace. Chapter 3094. Imperial Palace. Yi Qing Luo woke up when Dmo Xian carried her back to her princess-like room. The minute she opened her eyes, she saw the entire room in pink. Yi Qing Luo went into a daze for a moment. After some time, her vision was fixed on Dmo Xian's face. "We're back." She was still thinking of seeing how Dmo Xian brought her through the realm door. How could she be so disappointing, falling asleep in the carriage? It seemed on the way to the Hell's Palace. She felt dizzy for a moment, and then they reached the Hell's Palace. Thinking of the sandalwood scent she smelled before she fell asleep. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased as her eyes suddenly widened and her little hand grabbed Dmo Xian's collar. "Tell me honestly, did you intentionally make me fall asleep?" Dmo Xian's slender long hand caressed her lips as he gave a low and hoarse smile. "Isn't it because you wanted to stay in my arms, so you fell asleep?" Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth and bit his finger as she stared at him resentfully. Don't think that, by teasing me, you can change the topic. Tell me honestly, you made me fall asleep. What unspeakable things are you planning to do behind my back? Do what? What do you think? His low and hoarse voice was filled with magnetism. His finger intentionally teased between her teeth. His gaze was filled with infatuation. It was an obvious indication of some kind of feelings. Yi Qing Luo's cheeks flushed red. She bit hard on his finger and immediately let go. Don't use this method to change the topic. I don't fall for it. Pretty boy trick or something. Use it a few more times. She would also develop antibodies, all right. DMO Xian laughed lightly as he bent down and planted a kiss on her lips. All right, I admit that I'm the reason why you fell asleep. His forehead was placed on hers. The distance between the two of them was very close. Why? Yi Qing Luo asked. DMO Xian caressed her face gently. I don't want you to see me finding trouble with Zhu Wuxian. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she abruptly sat upright, pulling the distance between the two of them apart. You and Zhu Wuxian fought. The minute she fell asleep, the two of them started fighting? Indeed, letting Zhu Wuxin stay in the imperial palace was a wrong choice. I don't have the habit of taking advantage of others. DMO Xian pinched her nose. Yi Qing Luo's hands held onto his mischievous, large palm. Where did you arrange for Zhu Wuxian to stay? Guest room. The human face hiding in Zhu Wuxin's right arm was a hidden danger. No matter how much he disliked Zhu Wuxin, DMO Xian would not arrange for Zhu Wuxian to be too far away from him. He held on to her hand as his body leaned downwards. A rich male hormonal scent enveloped Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's back fell onto the soft big bed. She raised her eyes and met the man's deep peach blossom eyes. The flowing light was overflowing with a myriad of splendor. Yi Qing Luo, who had already said that she had developed an immunity to the seduction, was once again mesmerized by the man's magnificent looks. I don't like the sound of his name coming from you. DMO Xian lowered his head and captured her lips. This kiss was extremely forceful. Yi Qing Luo didn't even have time to struggle before she was completely drowned by the man's scent, until a rhythmic knocking sound was heard outside the door, interrupting the warmth and sweetness in the room. DMO Xian's expression was extremely ugly, with an unsatisfied expression. Yi Qing Luo pushed him away as she speedily tidied up her clothes and coughed lightly. What's the matter? Madam. Chapter 3095. Beiyuan. Yi Qing Luo immediately pushed away the man who wanted to hug her and slid down from the pink princess bed. Tang Beiyuan was under DMO Xian's orders to personally send Gu Jingyu back to Wind Valley Sect. I have something urgent to report. Could it be what happened? Although she could not respond to Gu Jingyu's feelings, but for her, Gu Jingyu was also her friend. Yi Qing Luo opened the door and walked out. What happened? Tang Beiyuan cupped her fists towards Yi Qing Luo. Mistress, something has happened in South Water Continent. Something happened? Yi Qing Luo frowned. What happened? Tang Beiyuan was just about to speak when she saw DMO Xian walking out of the house with a gloomy face. Her vision swiftly swept past Yi Qing Luo's lips. He took another look at DMO Xian's expression. As someone with a fiancé, she naturally knew what had happened in the room earlier. Tang Beiyuan lowered her head in silence. Yi Qing Luo turned her head back and took a look at the gloomy man behind her. She stretched out her hand and held his large palm. DMO Xian's expression then eased up a little as he glanced at Tang Beiyuan speak. When I brought young sect master Gu to the Wind Valley sect, I discovered that South Wave Continent has already. Tang Beiyuan's expression was grave. It has already been plunged into misery and suffering. It is said that the monarch of South Wave Continent has already fled. The the people will be plunged into misery and suffering? Yi Qing Luo was stunned. South Waves continent is one of the more developed continents among the 4 continents. Why would they suddenly start a war? Which continent attacked the South Waves continent? No. Tang Beiyuan shook her head. The Wind Valley sect master said it happened half a month ago. It was a group of monsters. It said that no matter what we do, we won't be able to kill them. They're impervious to swords and spears, fearless of fire and water. We can only watch as they slaughter one city after another. Unkillable. Corpse puppet? The first thing that popped up in Yi Qing Luo's mind was the appearance of the corpse puppet. Apart from the dark palaces, corpse puppets. Yi Qing Luo couldn't think of any other unkillable monster. Tang Beiyuan had never seen a corpse puppet before, so she wasn't sure what Yi Qing Luo was talking about. She paused for a moment, then continued. When I left, South Waves continent had already been occupied by dark Nether Palace. Now only Wind Valley sect is still defending South Waves continent, but I'm afraid they won't be able to hold on for long. It really is a corpse puppet. Yi Qing Luo clenched her teeth. The Palace of Seclusion found someone to replace Yu Yin so quickly. After Yu Yin died, the process of refining corpse puppets should have been interrupted because of this. How could he adjust in such a short time? He could even bring his undead corpse puppets and invade the South Waves continent? Could it be that right from the start the Palace of Darkness had already prepared a backup plan? Yi Qing Luo looked at Dmo Xian as she asked in puzzlement. Dmo Xian's expression turned grave. I'm afraid the secluded palace are worried that we will take the opportunity to reduce their forces, so they are so anxious to expand their own forces. His eyes were deep. The matter of us going to the underworld palace, the Palace of Darkness, should already know about it. The act of the Palace of Darkness invading the South Waves continent has further confirmed our guesses. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips. Their motive is really to take over the entire Nirvana realm. But Yi Qing Luo couldn't understand why the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness, the person with a distinguished status in the upper realm, had such a deep obsession towards the Nirvana realm. Chapter 3096. Call for help. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. The way to deal with the corpse puppets, other than Ah Xian's mental power, the only way is to extract the Serene Yin's mental power to refine a weapon to kill them. Time is so tight, Yu Yin's mental force has not been extracted, and refining weapons also requires time. Even if the Wind Valley sect asks for help from the Imperial Palace has no way to deal with those monsters. The Emperor Palace's disciples were all living people with flesh and blood. How could they be compared to the corpses of those puppets? The Imperial Palace is unable to agree to the Gufeng sect's patriarch's request for help. Yi Qing Luo's expression was solemn. Bei Yuan, please reject the Gufeng sect. Tang Beiyuan nodded. Just as she was about to turn around, she was stopped by a voice. Beiyuan, agree to the Wind Valley sect. Ah Xian. When Yi Qing Luo heard Dmo Xian's words, she immediately grabbed his arm tightly. You should be more familiar with the Imperial Palace's disciples than me. Their mental powers could not possibly be higher than Serene Yin, who specializes in mental powers. Unless his mental strength was higher than Yin. Otherwise, the corpse puppets wouldn't be able to destroy it at all. Most importantly, the Yin Qi on the corpse puppets could easily corrupt a person's heart. Listen to me. Dmo Xian raised his large palm and stroked her hair, comforting her. Whether it's for public or private reasons, we can't let Netherworld Palace occupy the South Water Continent. Once Nether Palace absorbs the forces of the South Waves continent, the other 3 continents will be restrained. If the Tenyu Palace develops, the Imperial Palace will become a stepping stone for the Tenyu Palace, and the Nirvana realm will cease to exist. Yi Qing Luo was stunned. Her pink lips moved, but she couldn't say a single word of rebuttal. Indeed, the target of the Dark Nether Palace was obviously the entire Nirvana realm. The southern continent was just the starting point. If secluded Darkness Palace invaded the South Water Continent and then attacked the West Water Continent in one fell swoop, the West Continent, which had just experienced a great battle with the Dark Forces and was still recuperating, was definitely no match for the undead corpse puppets. In this way, the East and North continents would be in imminent danger. She and DMO Xian had gone to the Underworld Palace. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness must have known through by May's thick skin. They must also know that the Balance Historian of the Heavenly Law Realm had met with them. However, the Dark Nether Palace still dared to invade the South Water Continent in such a wantonly manner, directly targeting the entire Nirvana realm. Clearly, he was not afraid of the Heavenly Law Realm interfering. Or perhaps the person behind the Tenyu Palace had a higher status than the Heavenly Law Realm? But if his status was so high, why did they have to target a small shrimp like her? Why did he have to invade the entire Nirvana realm? Just because she was together with DMO Xian? Just because DMO Xian stayed in Nirvana realm? It caused the people behind the Nether Palace to feel that there was some unspeakable secret in Nirvana realm? No, something was not right. If the other party was really as she guessed, his status was above the Heavenly Law Realm and he was mysterious and noble. Unless it was necessary, the other party would never take such a huge risk to destroy the balance between realms that had been maintained for centuries or even millennia. Little Luor. DMO Xian's voice rang once again. His hand, gently placed on Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and met his gaze. The most important thing is... DMO Xian looked at her. Agree to Wine Valley Sect's request for help. Then you can let Wind Valley Sect use the Vermilion Bird Pearl as an exchange condition. Vermilion Bird Pearl. Yi Qing Luo suddenly understood. The main reason why you agreed to Wine Valley Sect's request for help is because of the Vermilion Bird Pearl. MN. DMO Xian didn't refute. Chapter 30, 97. More than that, it was still a warm current. She disregarded her shyness and Tang Beiyuan's presence. She stretched out her arms and wrapped them around DMO Xian's waist. She leaned her body completely into DMO Xian's arms, agreeing to Wine Valley Sect's request for help. Ultimately, it was all for her. In order to help her collect the 4 sacred beast pearls, in order to open the door to the upper realm. Ah, Xian, thank you. She spoke in a hoarse voice as her little face rubbed against his arms. The man's strong arms wrapped around her tightly. His broad and warm embrace gave her a great sense of security. He chuckled as his magnetic and mellow voice floated down from above her head. Silly girl, I'm not only doing this for you, but also for myself, for our future. While speaking, DMO Xian had already bent down and pressed his thin lips against her ear. The man's warm breath sprayed out. He smiled. I really can't wait to make you my wife. Yi Qing Luo's petite body trembled slightly. Her fingers, which were clutching the man's robe, unconsciously curled up. Her little face, which was buried in the man's arms, was stained with a few patches of red. Beiyuan, go and reply to Wind Valley Sect. DMO Xian gently caressed Yi Qing Luo's fine black hair as he looked up at Tang Beiyuan. Bring the conditions that I have mentioned over. Yes, Tang Beiyuan responded. Wait. Yi Qing Luo popped out her little head from DMO Xian's arms. Beiyuan, leave the matter of replying to Wind Valley Sect to others first. I still have something to trouble you with. Tang Beiyuan was stunned for a moment before she nodded. Yes, mistress. Hearing Tang Beiyuan's serious address, Yi Qing Luo's temperature, which had dropped with great difficulty, rose again. She pursed her pink lips and said, If it's possible, ask Wind Valley Sect's patriarch if they can hold on for another 3 days. 3 days later, the Imperial Palace will definitely rush over. 3 days. Tang Beiyuan was slightly hesitant. The situation in South Continent isn't too optimistic. 3 days might be a little difficult. First, bring a portion of the Xian generation, disciples, to South Continent. 3 days later, I will personally go over with little Luo'er. Dmo Xian said. Tang Beiyuan answered, yes. After Tang Beiyuan left, Dmo Xian Huan hugged Yiqing Luo's petite body tightly as he cupped her little face with one hand. Want Beiyuan to refine a batch of weapons to go against the undead puppets in these 3 days. Yiqing Luo's hands wrapped around his neck. No one knows me better than Xian. You're really a roundworm in my stomach. Indeed, this was what she had in mind. Within her azure dew bracelet, a dark and sinister mental energy was sealed. First, he extracted a portion of his mental power and let Tang Beiyuan use it to refine a portion of the weapons. At least when it came to undead puppets, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. I'll bring you to the armament refining hall. Dmo Xian gave her a peck on her lips and immediately carried her up, striding out of the courtyard. Yiqing Luo's legs trembled. Don't hug me like this. If the maids and disciples see this, I'm very embarrassed. Although that was what he said. But Yiqing Luo's brows were filled with a blissful and sweet smile. The hands which were wrapped around Dmo Xian's neck refused to loosen for a long time. Towards Dmo Xian's action to declare her identity to the entire imperial palace, Yiqing Luo was naturally delighted. There was no woman who didn't like their beloved man to declare his identity. The two of them were filled with warmth and sweetness, but they didn't notice it. Outside the courtyard, on top of a thick and sturdy tree, a red figure slowly descended. The man's face was grave and stern, surrounded by a layer of austere intent. His frosty eyes stared maliciously at the two figures which were getting further and further away. His eyes turned gloomier and colder. Asterisk, mini theater, ZOMO, it seems it's a new month, forgot to ask for the monthly votes? Dmo Xian, cold glance, you just realized? Without the support of the monthly votes, this lord's skill points to flirt with Lil Luo are almost used up. Do you know that? Yiqing Luo, sneer, you just realized? Without the energy of the monthly votes, I can't even use the skill to flirt with Xian. ZOMO. You too, flirting here and there. Is it really good to abuse a single dog? Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo, rubbing their fists, hee. Don't let this lord me flirt with Lil Luo, Xian. We'll stop acting. Stop acting, do you understand? The purpose of our appearance is to flirt. Chapter 3098. 3 days later, Yiqing Luo and Tang Beiyuan walked out of the armament refining hall. Their fine black hair was in a mess, their faces were haggard, and their eyes were green, showing signs of fatigue. Yiqing Luo yawned, and as she walked, she glanced sideways at Tang Beiyuan. Beiyuan, go back and rest first. What about you? After 3 days of refining weapons together, Tang Beiyuan finally changed the way she addressed Yiqing Luo and called her by her name. Yiqing Luo stretched her waist lazily. Let's not waste any more time. I'll go back and tidy myself up, then bring the weapons and head towards South Continent with Xian. I'll go too. Tang Beiyuan's lips curled slightly. Her eyes were filled with fatigue, but it didn't hide the melancholy in her eyes. I'll go back to tidy myself up now. Wait for me. You. Yiqing Luo frowned. You should be very clear that the trip to South Continent might be life-threatening. I know. Tang Beiyuan smiled. That's why I have to go. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips in silence. Tang Beiyuan patted her shoulder lightly and smiled calmly. Moreover, these weapons to deal with the puppets are all refined by me. If I go with you, it will be easier for me to bring out the best effect and advantage of each weapon. Think it through carefully. Yiqing Luo didn't try to dissuade her. She respected everyone's choice. After making an appointment to meet Tang Beiyuan at the entrance of the palace, Yiqing Luo walked towards the courtyard. She just turned around. The familiar and elegant scent of sandalwood entered her nostrils. Her eyes lit up as her lips curled into a smile. Sorry, I was dealing with the palace's matters earlier, so I'm late. The man's gentle and magnetic voice floated down from above. Yi Qing Luo was exhausted as she unceremoniously leaned her weight into Dmo Xian's arms. Carry me back as punishment. She just wrapped her arms around Dmo Xian's waist. Yi Qing Luo suddenly thought of something as her face congealed in satisfaction, and she hurriedly stretched out both hands to push Dmo Xian. Wait, you can't carry me now. She just struggled. The man's arms suddenly tightened. The rich male hormonal scent almost intoxicated Yi Qing Luo's heart. Dmo Xian's thin lips curled up frivolously. I haven't seen you for 3 days. I miss you so much that I'm going crazy. How can I not hug you? The man's words of love were husky and magnetic, a pair of blazing eyes, as if a raging fire was about to burn. Yi Qing Luo's cheeks flushed red. Her brain had already been seduced by the man's sweet nothings, but her body was still resisting the man's intimate embrace again. Dmo Xian held both her hands that were pushing him away. His low and husky voice was mellow and sexy. Haven't seen me for 3 days. Don't you miss me? She wanted to say no. His lips parted slightly, but not a single word came out. Why was it that she was always the one who was unable to extricate herself from Dmo Xian's seduction? Why did you reject me? Dmo Xian saw that she had stopped struggling and continued to tempt her with a low and husky laugh. Yi Qing Luo's hands were held by him and her body was locked in his embrace, so there was no way for her to escape. In the end, she could only blush as she muttered, I haven't bathed in 3 days. The smell stinks. Finishing her words, she buried her face into Dmo Xian's arms. He was so embarrassed that he didn't want to speak anymore. But after she finished her words, silence pervaded the air. This made Yi Qing Luo feel even more embarrassed. After a moment of silence, she was angered by this strange atmosphere. Gritting her teeth as she raised her head and stared angrily at Dmo Xian *. Chapter 3099. Ha! The man burst out laughing. His chest undulated, showing how carefree the man was when he laughed. The more he laughed, Yi Qing Luo only felt more embarrassed. She bit her lower lip, struggled her hands, and snorted angrily, Laugh, laugh, laugh! Laugh all you want. The more she struggled, the tighter the man hugged her. Also, the more wantonly he laughed. Perhaps he sensed the young lady in his arms, whose anger was on the verge of exploding. Dmo Xian smiled as he held her slender waist tightly. His thin lips slowly landed on her lips. I don't despise you. Yi Qing Luo. Her cheeks turned even redder. This was no longer embarrassment, but annoyance. Unfortunately, the man unknowingly raised his hand and gently rubbed Yi Qing Luo's hair. Even if you don't bathe for 3 years, I won't despise you. Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo gritted her teeth, raised her elbow, and was about to knock Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian laughed lightly as he blocked her hand. Following that, his long arm scooped. Conveniently, he carried her up by the waist. Yi Qing Luo's hands instinctively hooked around his neck. All right, I'll stop teasing you, no matter how I tease you. Your face is still so ugly. Dmo Xian gently kissed her eyes. Rest first, I'll call you later. No. Today is the 3rd day we need. Yi Qing Luo shook her head. I'll arrange it and set off immediately. Dmo Xian interrupted her words. Rest first. I'll help you bathe and change your clothes. Yi Qing Luo. How on earth did he say to help her bathe in such a serious manner? It's not the first time I helped you bathe. Why are you still shy? Dmo Xian sensed her gaze and looked down at her. Yi Qing Luo. Can't be shy if it's not the first time. Don't say it as if helping her bathe was a very normal thing. Dmo Xian laughed softly. Don't worry, I won't take the opportunity to do anything to you. He paused and continued. You're so tired, no matter what I do to you. You don't have any reaction. This is so boring. Yi Qing Luo. Could she hammer him to death? In the end, Yi Qing Luo couldn't resist the physical exhaustion and sleepiness as she fell into a deep sleep after messing around with DMO Xian for a while. By the time Yi Qing Luo woke up, it was already noon the next day. She opened her eyes and saw the man's smooth chin. At this moment, she was lying on DMO Xian's lap and her arms were still wrapped around his waist. This posture, it was a little too ambiguous. She blinked her eyes, still a little confused. Sensing that Yi Qing Luo had woken up, the man lowered his eyes. The obsidian-like peach blossom eyes reflected into Yi Qing Luo's pupils. Their eyes met. "You're awake? Are you hungry?" DMO Xian caressed her face lightly. Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes again, and after some time, she seemed to have recalled something as she sat up abruptly. "Didn't you say that you would wake me up after helping me bathe?" Buffed! An irrepressible chuckle came from the side. Yi Qing Luo immediately turned her head over. She then discovered that she was sitting in a carriage similar to a horse carriage, and the curtains on both sides were fluttering from time to time. Yi Qing Luo could see a large patch of white clouds moving backwards rapidly, which meant to say, now it was little Nine who was dragging the carriage, running wildly in the sky. That laughter seemed to come from outside the carriage. Yi Qing Luo immediately climbed up from DMO Xian's lap and pulled the curtains open. She saw Tang Beiyuan, who was riding on a flying magical beast, outside the curtains, looking at her with an evil smile. Chapter 30-100. I was wondering why the Overlord personally carried you up the carriage, so... Everything was because the Overlord was serving you. Tang Beiyuan lowered her voice to tease, but she intentionally emphasized on the word serving. Yi Qing Luo tugged the curtains hard and shrank back into the carriage. She stared furiously at DMO Xian. "Why didn't you tell me that we're on the way to South Continent?" "You didn't give me a chance to speak." DMO Xian was innocent. Yi Qing Luo was embarrassed as she pursed her lips. "It's all your fault. You didn't wake me up earlier. It's so embarrassing." "You're very tired and need to rest." DMO Xian stretched out his hand and pulled the young lady into his arms. "They all know that you're my future wife, and you won't be embarrassed." His delicate kiss landed on her forehead. "They also don't dare to laugh at you." Yi Qing Luo shrank backwards, avoiding his kiss with an unhappy look. It was easy to say. They didn't dare to laugh, but not knowing how to laugh were two different things. DMO Xian's underlings had heard. Their private words. She couldn't even look at them in the eye in future. Yi Qing Luo wanted to cry, but no tears came out. So embarrassed that she wanted to turn back time. Her evasion made DMO Xian misunderstood. He tightened his arm and lifted her lower jaw as his fingertip brushed past her lips. "I said before, I don't despise you, don't hide from me." Yi Qing Luo. "Despise your grandpa." "I despise you." Just as Yi Qing Luo was filled with embarrassment, a knocking sound was heard from outside the carriage. Yi Qing Luo walked over with a green face as she lifted the curtains. "Tang Beiyuan, you still want to tease?" Her words were stuck in her throat when she saw the figure outside the carriage. After the curtains were lifted, what he saw was an extremely grave and stern face. Black pupils were as cold as ice as he fixed his eyes on her, as though he wanted to freeze her into ice. So cold that it was bone-chilling. The anger on Yi Qing Luo's face slowly dissipated. "Chu Wu Xen." Outside the carriage, riding on a huge green wolf. Wasn't that Chu Wu Xen? The human face in Chu Wu Xen's right arm had yet to be resolved. They were heading towards South Continent. Zhu Wuxin indeed had to accompany them. "Was he the one who helped you bathe yesterday?" Zhu Wuxin asked with a cold expression. Yi Qing Luo frowned. Couldn't he tell that she really didn't want to discuss this topic? Evidently, Zhu Wuxin could not tell. Seeing that Yi Qing Luo didn't reply, Zhu Wuxan continued asking, Did you willingly allow him to help you wash, or did he force you? Yi Qing Luo. She pulled down the curtain again, blocking Zhu Wuxin's face. Yi Qing Luo, if he forced you, tell me. I will help you take revenge. Zhu Wuxan did not give up and said coldly from outside the carriage. You shut up. Yi Qing Luo couldn't take it anymore. His rage was about to be ignited. Dmo Xian embraced her once again. Her body fell backwards and fell into Dmo Xian's arms. The man's hands encircled her waist. A large palm was still pressed against her abdomen. The scorching and thick feeling made Yi Qing Luo's petite body tremble slightly. Lil Luo, is this Lord's future wife? This is merely a normal action and has nothing to do with you. Dmo Xian's calm voice rang faintly. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes curled as a cold glint flashed past the corners of his eyes. Lil Luo, is this Lord's future wife, so naturally, this is also voluntary. Outside the carriage, Zhu Wuxan didn't say another word. Chapter 30-101. Xian. Yi Qing Luo's little hand held onto Dmo Xian's big palm as she called out to him softly, Don't say any more. I'm so sorry. I'm merely telling the truth to those pestering people. Dmo Xian's eyes were sinister as he looked outside the curtain, as though he was looking at Zhu Wuxan through the carriage. Yi Qing Luo wanted to say something as she raised her head to look at him, but she discovered that Dmo Xian's expression was extremely ugly. She was stunned, but in the end, she didn't say anything else. Dmo Xian's vinegar jar was overturned again. So be it if he was embarrassed. Anyway, love and whatnot should be flaunted. Just let Dmo Xian declare his sovereignty, his ownership. If it could let Zhu Wuxan know that he should back off, that would be even better. The group of people, under the tense and strange atmosphere, under the acceleration of their own war pets. That night, they arrived at South Continent's main city, Valley Wind City. After walking out of the carriage, Yi Qing Luo was stunned by the current situation in Valley Wind City. She remembered. Previously, when she took part in the Academy's exchange meet, she came to South Continent. The prosperous scene in South Continent was still fresh in her memory, but now it made one's heart heavy. The sky was filled with a dense mass of flying beasts, as though dark clouds were rolling, and it was faintly mixed with lightning and thunder. The magical beasts' roars and the flying beasts' cries rose and fell, wave after wave. Looking at Valley Wind City, the flames of war raged in the sky. Figures dressed in black palace of darkness uniform walked back and forth. Magical beasts, flying beasts, palace of darkness people, as well as dead corpses and puppets, filled the entire Valley Wind City. Help! Suddenly, a miserable cry was heard not far ahead. Everyone looked towards the direction of the sound. They saw a few commoners being pressed onto the ground by a few magical beasts. They only managed to make a few cries for help before they were torn into pieces by the magical beasts. It was extremely cruel and bloody. The people from Palace of Darkness are too cruel. Tang Beiyuan was also stunned by this scene. Ayu Lei and Feng, the three guardians, speedily stood in front of Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo as they looked around vigilantly. The few of them's appearance. This had already attracted the attention of the demonic beasts. When I came here a few days ago, it wasn't this tragic. Tang Beiyuan sucked in a breath of cold air. Valley Wind City has become like this. Could it be that Valley Wind sect couldn't have held on? He's still holding on. Yi Qing Luo's gaze shot towards the direction of Valley Wind City. There are still people fighting with the birds and beasts. From time to time, the birds in the sky would rush down and crash into the buildings in Goofing City. The beasts were also fiercely tearing and destroying everything in Valley Wind City. But on the city wall, there were also groups of armored soldiers dealing with the birds and beasts. There are innocent people over there. Take them to a safe place. The general on the city wall noticed that the few people were gradually surrounded by the beasts and people from the Palace of Darkness. He immediately ordered the soldiers behind him. 10 soldiers immediately flew down from the city walls, blocking in front of Yi Qing Luo and the others. The soldiers were all covered with scattered wounds, and there were new wounds which were still bleeding. But they clenched the weapons in their hands tightly as they stood firmly in front of Yi Qing Luo and the others. Facing the savage and bloody, inhumane walking beasts, the people from Palace of Darkness had no fear at all. You all are from Valley Wind Sect? Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth to ask. The soldiers turned their heads curiously as they took a look at Yi Qing Luo. For any normal person, on seeing Valley Wind City turning into such a bloody and brutal scene, no matter what they did, they would be scared out of their wits? Chapter 3102. In the South Waves continent, only Valley Wind City has surviving citizens? Are the other cities still holding on? Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about the soldiers' puzzlement as she continued asking. The soldiers looked at each other in dismay. One of the soldiers sized up the people in front of him. He felt that the 7 people in front of him were all handsome men and beautiful women, and they all had extraordinary temperaments. It was obvious that he was no ordinary person. Especially, why do I feel like that beautiful girl dressed in red, who was devastatingly beautiful, looked somewhat familiar? However, with the enemy in front of him, his brain was stuffed. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he had seen her. Follow us closely. We'll bring you to the safe zone first. The soldiers didn't have the time to talk to Yi Qing Luo and the others. Brandishing the weapons in his hands, he prepared to carve out a path of blood. Thousands of magical beasts and the flying beasts in the sky. Even if we go to the safety zone, how long can we last? Yi Qing Luo and the rest didn't move. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and looked at the dark sky. How much longer can Valley Wind City last? The soldiers were startled, and they tightened their grip on their weapons. The expressions on their faces became stern and determined. As long as our Valley Wind sect does not fall, Valley Wind City will definitely hold on. You are already standing in Valley Wind City. These birds and beasts will not let you go. All of you come with us immediately. Our Valley Wind sect's young sect master and elders are guarding there. The secluded Darkness Palace won't be able to harm you for the time being. Wind Valley Sect! Yi Qing Luo's brows rose slightly as her lips curled into an extremely shallow arc. Then that's right. What? The soldiers still hadn't understood the meaning behind Yi Qing Luo's words. Suddenly, he felt a formless pressure spreading from behind him. Soon after, the beautiful young lady with a sweet smile quickly charged into the surging magical beasts ahead. The soldiers' eyes widened. Miss, be careful. Those demonic beasts had no humanity. I just don't understand. Before he could say the words tender and protective of the fairer sex, the soldiers were so shocked by the scene before them that they couldn't utter a single word. He could only hear the roars of the wild beasts ringing in his ears. The ground shook violently and cracks appeared on it. The sand and pebbles that filled the air turned into strong gales that blew ferociously. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of a heavy object hitting the ground could be heard. The burly, mountain-like, demonic beasts that had wrapped around the young girl were all sent flying in the air like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers. The soldiers were all stunned. This girl, he looked no more than 14 or 15 years old. How could it be so powerful? In the blink of an eye, he had killed more than a dozen magical beasts that had troubled them for months. It covered the birds that filled the sky and noticed the situation here. It actually gave off a sharp cry and immediately turned into a black long arrow, charging towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Be careful! The soldiers knew very well how terrifying these birds were. He immediately raised his weapon and was about to rush over to protect Yi Qing Luo. Just stay here and watch. A low and indifferent voice sounded behind him. The voice was calm, and there was not the slightest trace of emotion. However, it made the soldiers feel as if they were bound by something, unable to move. The soldiers only saw the purple-robed man who had been hugging the young girl from the corner of their eyes, staring at the young girl's direction with adoration. They could obviously see it. The purple-robed man's worry towards that young girl. Chapter 3103. Soldiers. They were obviously arranged to save these people, but they were actually said to be a burden. They were feeling indignant. But the next moment, they saw the sky filled with burning flames and the flying beasts which had fallen onto the ground. They were convinced. Their naked eyes could only see a red shadow scurrying around. The speed was extremely fast. Everywhere it went, one by one, the flying beasts fell from the sky as though they were free. In just a moment, there were already close to 100 flying beasts lying on the ground. Piled up on the ground, it formed a small hill. Perhaps they sensed that Yi Qing Luo wasn't someone to be trifled with. The sky full of flying beasts started to scurry into the sky, not daring to have any offensive actions. Swoosh! A gust of strong wind brushed past. The soldiers had yet to react. They heard a young lady's sweet voice coming from behind. These flying beasts are the lowest grade and have no consciousness, so they are easy to deal with. The soldiers were dumbfounded. The young lady flew forward and then back. At most it took less than half an incense's time. After that, the ground was filled with magical beasts' corpses and flying beasts' corpses. This was simply too perverted. You've worked hard. Dmo Xian pulled her into his arms as his large palm gently caressed her fine black hair. Yi Qing Luo's brows curved as she hooked her arms around his neck. I'm so tired after killing so many flying beasts at once. Dmo Xian smiled as he hugged the young lady's waist without any hesitation, encircling her in his arms. The young lady's face was filled with satisfaction as she leaned against Dmo Xian's chest, like a kitten, intimately rubbing against his chest. The surrounding 10 soldiers were dumbstruck. Was this still the battle goddess who went on a killing spree earlier? Just a moment ago, she was still a perverted expert who didn't kill any flying beasts in an instant. The next moment, she had become a delicate little beauty. This span, did it need to be so huge? What's going on? Why are you still standing here for? Hurry and bring them to the safety zone. If the Palace of Darkness army rushes over, you won't be able to leave. Because Yi Qing Luo had killed hundreds of flying beasts. The birds hovering in the sky stopped their attack on Goofing City for a while. The general on top of the city wall got empty, and when he looked towards Yi Qing Luo and the rest, he discovered that they were still standing on the same spot, not moving at all as he bellowed angrily and anxiously. The 10 soldiers came back to their senses, their faces filled with shock. They carefully looked behind them at the 7 people with extraordinary auras. Everyone, please follow us to see the great general. The South Tide continent needs talented people like you to save the South Tide continent. One of the soldiers looked at Yi Qing Luo and the others in anticipation and joy. We'll talk about it when we get there. Yi Qing Luo popped out her little head and smiled at them. Towards these 10 soldiers, Yi Qing Luo had a good impression of them. After all, when Valley Wind City was on the brink of life and death, for the sake of Valley Wind City and for the sake of the innocent people, the generals and soldiers who were willing to stand guard here were worthy of respect. This place was indeed not the right place to talk. A group of people quickly headed towards the city wall. Along the way, they were obstructed by demonic beasts and patrolling disciples of the Palace of Darkness. The soldiers didn't even have time to make a move. They were cut down like cabbages by the 3 youngsters dressed as protectors who had been guarding the side of the purple-robed man, one by one. Very quickly, the group of people reached the top of Goofing City's city wall. The general speedily went up, but facing these 7 people who obviously had extraordinary auras, he couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 3104. When the general saw this, he couldn't be bothered to inquire about their identities as he hurriedly called for the doctor. This enthusiasm made Yi Qing Luo a little embarrassed as she nestled in Dmo Xian's arms, pretending to be a white lotus. Grand General! Grand General! The soldiers who followed Yi Qing Luo and the rest hurriedly went up to stop the general as they started talking at once. Grand General, you've misunderstood. That young lady isn't injured. Our Valley Wind City is saved. Grand General, let them join us. As long as they're around, Palace of Darkness's schemes will absolutely not succeed. That's right, Grand General. They're very strong. Extremely strong. As long as they make a move, these magical beasts and flying beasts will all be settled. The 10 over-soldiers were totally convinced of Yi Qing Luo's abilities. The chatter caused the general's head to throb. The commotion over here attracted the attention of the other station soldiers. Instantly pairs of scrutinizing gazes swept past Yi Qing Luo and the others. Apparently, they didn't believe that these 7 people were as powerful as what these 10 over-soldiers said. After all, these few people had extraordinary bearings, as their actions were elegant and noble, and they were excessively good-looking. No matter how they looked, they didn't look like people who roamed around the battlefield. The soldier abruptly raised his hand, interrupting the voices that were still trying to persuade him. Enough, enough! All of you shut up for this general. Instantly, the 10 over-soldiers seemed as though they had pressed the silent button as they shut their mouths. You say these 7 people are very powerful and are able to deal with these flying beasts? The general frowned as he asked. The soldiers nodded their heads in unison. The general's gaze swept past those 10 over-soldiers and saw that their eyes were filled with worship and expectations towards Yi Qing Luo and the others. The general's brows creased even tighter as he shifted his gaze towards Yi Qing Luo and the others. After some time, he frowned as he shook his head. No matter how skilled and daring they are, they're still made of flesh and blood. We don't know what sinister method Palace of Darkness used to control the endless amount of flying beasts and beasts, especially when Palace of Darkness has a batch of monsters. At this point, the general's tone became much more solemn. They are but innocent outsiders. We can't drag these innocent people into the conflict of the South Tide continent. That's right, we can't involve innocent people anymore. There are only 7 of them. Not only does the Palace of Gloom have the help of demonic beasts and birds, they also have that group of monsters. We can't harm them. When the other soldiers heard this, they all agreed with the great general's words. The general waved his hand, calming the restless hearts of the soldiers. Following that, he cupped his fists towards Yi Qing Luo and the others. Everyone, thank you for being willing to help, but we're not willing to implicate innocent people, causing you to lose your lives in vain. You should head to the safe zone. Once the people from Palace of Gloomy Darkness leave, we will send people to escort you out of the South Tide continent. Are you sure you wish for us to leave? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she raised her head from Dmo Xian's arms. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. Her smile was enchanting, like a blooming poppy, with a charm that could capture one's soul. When the general's vision was fixed on Yi Qing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face, his pupils, bit by bit, slowly expanded. Following that general knelt onto the ground with a potong sound. His head knocked hard onto the ground. Chapter 3105. To the generals and soldiers, Chen Chongqing's expression changed. The great general was their spiritual pillar. From defending Valley Wind City till now, they had never seen the great general lowering his head, even if it was the people from Secluded Palace who made use of those monsters to attack the city. The great general had always held his head high and never retreated. Even when facing the sect master of Valley Wind Sect, the great general had never lowered his head. This was the first time they saw. The great general had lost his composure. Plop! Dong! After the days, one after another, the soldiers followed their great general and knelt down. no matter what the reason was for the great general to lose his composure. As long as the great general felt that it was right. They felt that it was right. Not long later, there were 20 over people kneeling on the city walls. The great general's kneeling. It also made Yi Qing Luo and the rest dumbfounded. Yi Qing Luo kept the enchanting smile on her lips as she coughed lightly. Great General, please get up first. The great general raised his head as his eyes turned red and his muscles were all tensed up. Miss Yi, Overlord! I beg you, please save the South Continent. Miss Yi, Overlord! The soldiers were all stunned when they heard this form of address. Soon after, an uproar broke out. All of them couldn't suppress the excitement in their hearts, as they had long lost their rationality as they raised their heads and stared at Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo. Miss Yi, the one who saved the various Academy's elites in Nirvana Realm in the Blazing Flame Nest and saved her own continent, the one who was conferred as a heroine. Three Springs Clan's 7th Miss, Yi Qing Luo. Overlord? Is he the legendary Dizun? I heard that. Overlord and heroine Yi are fiancé and fiancé. If they were to appear, they would definitely appear at the same time. So these two people are really the heroine and Overlord. The soldiers were so excited that they almost cheered. Those 10 over soldiers who were sent to save Yi Qing Luo and the rest were suddenly enlightened. I was wondering why Miss Yi looked so familiar. So she is the heroine in the portrait. Yi Qing Luo listened to the soldiers' excited discussion. She was embarrassed as she patted Dmo Xian's arm, asking him to put her down. She had no idea when she had become so famous, under the expectant and worshipful gazes of so many people. She really felt embarrassed. To continue acting as her little white lotus, nestling in Dmo Xian's arms. After all, her title was the title of such a rough man. Heroine hero, Yi Qing Luo wiped off her sweat. When both her feet were on the ground, Yi Qing Luo straightened her red robe and cleared her throat. That great general, please get up first. The general's eyes were resolute as he clenched his fists and said, I beg Lady Yi and Lord Dizun to help the West Continent. Yi Qing Luo sighed, and with a wave of her sleeves, an invisible profound energy stirred up a breeze, forcefully supporting the great general up. Since we're here, it means that we're willing to help South Water Continent. The general's eyes reddened, and he gripped his weapon tightly. Since Lady Yi and Lord Dizun are willing to help, South Tide Continent definitely has hope. Definitely, he had persisted for the past few days, seeing the brothers around him getting fewer and fewer. The more the general persevered, the more despair he felt. Chapter 3106. He recalled that the sect master of the Gufeng sect had said that as long as they could hold on for a few days, the Imperial Palace would send people over to help. He waited and waited. Finally, he waited for them. Don't put too much hope in us. Yi Qing Luo looked at the Grand General, whose eyes were turning red as her lips curled upwards, and gave a faint smile. But we will try our best. Thank you, Imperial Palace, for being willing to lend a helping hand. Chow, can't thank you enough. After this matter is over, I am willing to do anything for the Imperial Palace to repay the Imperial Palace for saving my life. The general knelt on the ground once again, and his voice was sonorous and powerful. The soldiers also cupped their fists and knelt on one knee, saying in unison, Thank you, Imperial Palace, for lending a hand. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and waved, indicating for them to get up. There's no need for you to thank the Imperial Palace, and there's no need for the great general to work like a cow or horse to repay you. The reason why the Emperor Palace acted was because they had reached an agreement with your sect master. A deal? The general was taken aback. He couldn't figure out what kind of deal it was that could move the Imperial Palace and make the Dizun personally take action. Yi Qing Luo smiled lightly, Yes, this is the deal between the Imperial Palace and Gu Feng's sex patriarch. No matter what your motive is, the fact that the Imperial Palace is willing to lend a hand at this critical moment is the benefactor of our Wind Valley sect. The generals said solemnly. The soldiers said in unison, "That's right. Thank you, Imperial Palace, for lending a helping hand." TSK, I was wondering why you bastards suddenly became so brave. It turns out that help has arrived. Suddenly, a mocking voice sounded from below the city. Suddenly, a huge pressure surged in the surroundings. When the soldiers, who were still rejoicing, heard this voice, their expressions immediately darkened. The general suddenly stood up from the ground. His hand that was holding his weapon trembled continuously. His muscles were tense, as if he was suppressing some sort of emotion. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly as she held onto DMO Xian's arm and walked to the front of the city. Unknowingly, hundreds of gigantic magical beasts had surrounded them. There were also disciples dressed in the uniform of the Palace of Darkness, as well as stiff and expressionless corpses. Yi Qing Luo surveyed the surroundings. He estimated that there were about 100 disciples from the Palace of Darkness. There were nearly 50 undead puppets. But he could tell, these nearly 50 undead corpse puppets were not the half-finished products that he had seen for the first time. Instead, it was a defective product from when the Fox Saint technique had led them to invade the Miao tribe. Defective products were much easier to deal with than semi-finished products. At the very least, in terms of mental strength, the three guardians, Ayu, Ale, and Afeng, were stronger than defective goods. Therefore, they didn't need any special weapons to kill those undead corpse puppets. Yi Qing Luo's gaze swept around as she was thinking of countermeasures. His line of sight suddenly locked onto a figure. When he saw the man's face clearly, Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed. "It's you." That person was dressed in a navy blue brocade robe. He was a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s. He was very handsome and had the charm of a playboy. He stood in the middle of the palace of gloomy darkness. His posture was relaxed, and there was even a smirk at the corner of his mouth. Yi Qing Luo had met this person before. However, he had only seen it once. He didn't have a deep impression of her. The reason why she remembered him, or was it because of a certain someone? "Student Yi Qing Luo, I didn't expect you to still remember me." That man laughed softly. "It's my honor." Chapter 3107. Yi Qing Luo's face was full of ridicule. The dignified Elephant Saint technique has now become a scapegoat for the Palace of Darkness. Elephant Saint technique's expression changed slightly, but his lips quickly curled into a playboy smile. After all, student Yi Qing Luo was so ruthless towards the dark forces. If the dark forces wanted to survive, they could only seek a backer. He paused for a moment and chuckled. Everyone wants to live. The dark forces are no exception. Taking orders from the Palace of Darkness, working for the Palace of Darkness, becoming a scapegoat for the Palace of Darkness. This kind of ignoble existence really suits your character of hiding in the dark corners. Yi Qing Luo ridiculed them without any restraint. Xiang Sheng Fa clicked his tongue as he stroked his chin. "I've always heard my companions talk about how sharp your tongue is and how powerful you are. Today I've met you. You indeed live up to your reputation. No wonder you're the one who caused the dark forces to be unable to make a comeback." Student Yi Qing Luo. This sarcastic emphasis made Yi Qing Luo extremely unhappy when she heard it. "Student Yi Qing Luo, I'm very curious. How did you know my identity?" Elephant Saint technique raised his brows. "All along, it's always Old Wolf, that fellow showing his face outside. You should have never seen me before." "Because of Si Yanmu." Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes. "You think you've concealed it very well, but Si Yanmu's profound Yind Qi can't be concealed." Elephant Saint technique clapped his hands. "Not only do you know my identity, you also know about my relationship with Mumu. Not bad, not bad. You're indeed smart." I'm not interested in your relationship. Yi Qing Luo's expression was indifferent. That's right, this is all in the past. Elephant Saint Technique nodded in agreement. This is not the Heavenly Academy. I'm not the Dark Forces Saint Technique. I'm now just a lackey of the Palace of Darkness. I have to follow the mission assigned by the Palace of Darkness. Yi Qing Luo's brows knitted tightly. Her squinted eyes were suffused with a faint chill. This Elephant Saint Technique and Wolf Saint Technique were completely different types of people. If it was Wolf Saint Technique was already enraged by her sarcastic words earlier. But not only was Elephant Saint Technique still in a peaceful mood, he could even laugh at himself calmly. It could be seen that his psychological quality was extremely strong. Such a person was even more difficult to deal with. Student Yi Qing Luo, I didn't expect that. You would actually help South Water Continent. Xiangxing Fa looked curiously at the general standing beside Yi Qing Luo. Since when has the Imperial Palace been so kind? Yi Qing Luo replied, compared to the Palace of Darkness and you bunch of lackeys, I like the South Continent more, so naturally, I will help the South Continent. Xiangxing Fa shook his head helplessly. What a pity. I thought we could take down Valley Wind City today. Looks like we'll have to spend some more time. I really want to continue reminiscing with you, but Valley Wind City has yet to be conquered. I am pressed for time, so I can only slowly reminisce in the future. His words fell. Xiangxing Fa pretended to be casual as he smiled. His fingers gently brushed the hair on his forehead. He pretended to be suave and threw a coquettish wink at Yi Qing Luo. Just as she cast a flirtatious glance, Xiangxing Fa's frivolous face suddenly turned extremely sinister, and his voice turned gloomy. Attack the city! He gave the order. A sharp and intimidating beast's roar and birds' cries instantly resounded through the entire sky. The Palace of Darkness disciples raised their arms and clamored loudly. Chapter 3108. Damn it! The general's vision fell onto the corpse puppets, and his face was filled with shock. Not good! Miss Yi, those monsters, you must be careful. They are all impenetrable by water and fire. When the soldiers saw the corpse puppets, their faces revealed an astonished expression. They weren't willing to boost others' morale and diminish their own prestige. But during this period of time, the corpse puppets had brought them fear and bloodiness, which made their bodies instinctively produce fear. To them, the corpse puppets were their nightmare. As compared to thousands of troops and horses, it was even more terrifying. No worries. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she gazed at the magical beasts and nether palaces disciples pouncing over, and those stiff but extremely fast corpse puppets. Just help me take care of this friend of mine. Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways as she looked at Zhu Wu Xian's direction. Leave the rest to us. The soldiers looked at Zhu Wu Xian and looked at the bottom of the city, at the clamoring crowd from Nether Palace. They were slightly hesitant. Those monsters are really scary, totally able to fight against 100. Adding on so many Nether Palace's disciples and flying beasts, the few of you really don't need our help? The general's expression was solemn. We've already sent out an emergency signal to Gufeng sect, and they will immediately send people over to support us. And a few days ago, the disciples from the Imperial Palace will also rush over. After the general finished his words, he raised his head and looked at DMO Xian and Yi Qing Luo. Let's face the enemy together and drag the time. As long as the reinforcements rush over, we will definitely be able to defend Valley Wind City. You've been fighting for such a long time, and your stamina can't keep up. Even if you force yourself to fight, you're merely using your own life to drag that short moment of time. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were calm as she fixed her gaze on the general. I believe Grand General also doesn't want to see your own brothers sacrificing themselves in vain. The general's expression sunk as he clenched his fists tightly, but no buts. Yi Qing Luo shot her vision towards the bottom of the city at the magical beasts which had already started to attack Valley Wind City. "Help me take care of that friend of mine. That's the best repayment." Yi Qing Luo left this sentence behind. With a leap, she was already on top of the city wall. With a flick of her palm, a devouring flame fan appeared at her fingertips. Then she flew down. Her red robe was burning with the most brilliant light. With a flick of her wrist, the feather fan opened up, and an endless amount of profound energy gathered on the feather fan, transforming into numerous wind blades that slashed downwards. That wind blade was stained with this seductive red glow. They were like sharp blades that cut through everything around them. Wherever the wind blades went, the burly and strong magical beasts fell to the ground, one by one, without any warning. It even crushed many disciples of the Palace of Darkness to death. The magical beast collapsed. The wind blades slashed towards the disciples of the Palace of Darkness. A bloody path was carved out. Screech! Yi Qing Luo's feet had just landed at the bottom of the city wall when the sky was filled with a patch of darkness, suddenly charging down in unison. Sharp cries sounded as though it was going to pierce through one's eardrums, as it rang in succession. One after another, huge flying beasts flapped their wings, setting off a violent gale, sweeping up the sand on the ground, rolling like clouds as sand and stones flew. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she calmly looked at the hundreds of flying beasts charging towards her. Chapter 30:109. Hundreds of flying beasts were bent on seeking revenge for their companions. Each and every one of them revealed an ominous glint in their eyes as they opened their mouths. These flying beasts' mouths were actually filled with terrifying sharp teeth, and they kept on giving out terrifying sharp cries. The murderous aura filled the sky as it entangled with the flying sand and pebbles. In the haze, the young lady's fiery figure was faintly discernible. The flying beast's speed was extremely fast, and the young lady apparently had no intention to evade. The soldiers' eyes were all opened wide as they kept shouting for Yi Qing Luo to quickly evade. But their voices had just been shouted out. The sky full of flying beasts was about to close in on Yi Qing Luo. Bam! Just as everyone was trembling in fear. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion exploded in the air. A majestic, profound energy was like a rolling wave as it surged forward. In an instant, it enveloped the entire battlefield. The moment the hundreds of flying beasts swooped down, Lin Fan's eyes widened, as though they had crashed into something. Each of the flying beasts gave out a sharp, ear-piercing cry, which was totally different from the previous threats and warnings. If one listened carefully, it sounded extremely like a cry for help and pain. But in an instant, while the flying beasts were screaming miserably, in the sky, one after another huge flying beasts kept falling. It was totally in an instant. Earlier, those hundreds of flying beasts which had charged downwards towards Yi Qing Luo, none of them survived. The surrounding flying sand was still lingering and rolling. The air waves were still rolling. But in the haze, everyone could still see clearly. Overlord, Overlord. Everyone's expression congealed instantly. The tall and imposing figure standing in front of Yi Qing Luo, wasn't that Dmo Xian? His purple robe was fluttering due to the strong wind, and his jet black hair was also flying along with the wind, which set off that peerless face of his, making him look like a banished immortal. He slowly retracted his right hand. The surrounding profound energy, along with his action, gradually stopped. Without the strong wind waves, it lingered in the air. The surrounding flying sand and pebbles also stopped. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Heavens! The Overlord only used one hand and annihilated hundreds of flying beasts in minutes? This was simply too powerful. Just one hand. From the looks of it, it seemed as though he didn't use any profound energy at all, and he had easily suppressed those birds. It was simply too cool. Ah, Xian! Yi Qing Luo's pink lips perked up as she hugged Dmo Xian's arm with one hand. I knew you would block in front of me. Dmo Xian glanced sideways slightly. his eyes filled with gentleness and pampering. You've just recuperated. You can play and enjoy yourself. Don't tire yourself out. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she nodded. Don't worry about me. These dregs will at most let me warm up. Dmo Xian rubbed her head affectionately. The two of them looked at each other and smiled warmly. In the eyes of the people from the Palace of Darkness, their sweet talk was blatant disdain and mockery. Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian didn't intentionally lower their voices when they spoke earlier. Basically, everyone present heard the conversation between the two of them. This blatant disdain and disdainful attitude infuriated the people of Dark Nether Palace. Don't think that just because the Overlord is here you can win. Valley Wind City will definitely belong to us Palace of Darkness. Right. We, the people from Palace of Darkness, are not afraid of the Overlord at all.